One of the distinguished guests approached to express his congratulations. The pink-haired man turned to the brunette standing next to him and noted that his third son had recently turned 18. Now, he says, with 3 grown sons, life will be much easier. He then added that he had heard rumors that his youngest son had not yet awakened his mana. After this, he asked with slight surprise whether the young man really had not yet awakened. After all, in such a case, he is supposed to remain under the care of his father and honor his name. The man also noted that he had never seen the guy at any birthday party and wondered if he was really that shy. The brunette responded by simply noting that if the guy had appeared at such receptions, they would have laughed at him, since Bliss's health left much to be desired. However, at that very moment, the door swung open and Bliss himself ran into the hall, asking his father for help. The father frowned, deciding that his son again wanted to become the subject of gossip for the gossips of high society. Meanwhile, the young man hastily said that Shayna was not breathing. He asked to call the Harris family physician, since the Duke's court physician could not help her. The man frowned and asked who this Shayna was. To this, one of the people in the room replied that she was Bliss's guide, a mage who helped awaken mana. But the father only chuckled, asking if he was referring to this incompetent guide. He believed that a talentless son couldn't have another guide. After all, everyone born into a line of mages is obligated to awaken before the age of 10. Awakening is the moment when a person is first able to summon mana at will. The sooner this occurs, the more powerful the mage becomes. By all accounts, Bliss should have achieved this by the age of 10. But in fact, even by the age of 18, nothing had happened. The father believed the cause was the weakness of the guide, who was supposed to be the one stimulating the awakening. He could have found an experienced mage for his son, but Duke Huff considered that a waste of time. He thought that no matter how much you water a rotten grain, it still won't sprout. Bliss's third son, a mixed-blooded man, was the only stain on the family's reputation. The man was surprised why the quiet boy suddenly decided to make such a fuss, and asked if that was the reason for all the noise. If the guide really was dead, then he should just bury her, because he could find another. But Bliss replied that Shayna was alive, her heart was still beating, and he had no desire to replace her. The father sharply ordered his son to shut up. He was outraged that he was hanging around with a useless person and still dared to come to his older brother's party with an unconscious body. So the man asked if Bliss really hated his brother so much that he wanted to ruin his birthday. But the boy denied it, saying he simply wanted to help. Then the father shouted that his son didn't understand his own insignificance and was only capable of envy. After all, there had never been such freaks in their family. He reminded Bliss that he knew what shame was and demanded that he repent before his brother, because if he had understood the situation at least a little, he would not have acted so stupidly. The young man wanted to apologize, but suddenly he wondered why he needed it if no one cared about him. Why should he ask for forgiveness if no one appreciated his feelings? The banquet that day was held in honor of Michael and Bliss's birthday, but Bliss was not even allowed to come close to the festival. He felt angry and resentful because he was never allowed to participate in such events, and it caused him pain and humiliation. Then he wondered what would be left of him if all these emotions were removed. But looking at the young lady, he realized that she must survive, and he bowed his head, asking forgiveness for his haste. He insisted that he had no intention of interfering with the celebration out of envy. He simply wanted to ask for help, as Shayna's condition was critical. Bliss promised he wouldn't bother his father again if he helped even once, and if the girl survived, he was willing to accept any punishment. But the man shouted again that he did not intend to listen to anything and reminded him that he himself had asked to call the Harris doctor. He asked if his son really thought it was that easy. Then he ordered that this dead body be immediately taken out and burned. The young man turned sharply and exclaimed that this could not be done. He insisted the girl was still alive. Then one of the butlers reached out to touch the body. But Bliss's gaze became so furious that he instinctively recoiled. After this, the young man suddenly releases his strength and, unable to bear it, shouts out that they should not dare touch the girl. Energy flows begin to break out of control. The cold grows around. His father, stunned, freezes, unable to believe what is happening. A thought flashes through my head. Could this really be an awakening and even ice magic? After all, the sun woke up only today, and he is already capable of controlling such power. If this continues, the banquet hall will soon be covered in frost, so the man screams, begging Bliss to stop. But the young man only calmly asks if his father really wants him to stop. Then he adds that he doesn't know how, because his guide is no longer breathing. Who can now help him contain this destructive force? So the guy continues to release energy, unable to stop it. The nobility, gripped by fear, are already beginning to worry about their own lives. The man realizes that this is not just an awakening, but a dangerous situation of excess. With such an awakening, a person, like a dam under the pressure of mana, loses control and chokes in its flow. Without a guide, this flow cannot be stopped, and Bliss's words prove true. The guy, barely holding on, turns to Shayna. Tears appear on his face. Despair trembles in his voice. The main character is confused as to why his awakening had to happen now. She is tormented by the thought of how to fix everything because she herself is to blame for the failure. She realizes the plan was perfect, but she didn't expect such a blow from Bliss. Shayna doesn't understand why his awakening happened, precisely because of her plunging into eternal sleep. She recalls how the guy assured her that she was his guide, mentor, and support. Then he introduced himself as Bliss Huff. The girl bowed, introducing herself as Shayna, and replied with a smile that she was glad to meet the young master. She knew she had accepted the role, though Bliss himself didn't know whether to be glad or sad that his guide had fallen into eternal sleep during the hunt. After all, it was she who became that incapable guide who fell asleep at the beginning of history. When Shayna opened her eyes after an eternal sleep, there was an unfamiliar ceiling above her. She instantly realized what had happened. Shayna was once an ordinary girl who loved to read. She was only interested in 18+ romance novels full of passion and drama. Therefore, from the first second, she should have understood whose body she had entered. The character's wavy pink hair and soft facial features gave her away. Amber eyes, shining like honey, and the youthful face of a teenager. That's who she is now. The maids who came called her Mrs. Shayna. The girl was in shock and tried to figure out what to do, because nothing came to mind. She couldn't remember any heroine with that name and appearance. This means she knows nothing about the new role. Perhaps this girl was cursed or banished. Maybe they kicked her out when they found out she was adopted. The lady with pink hair realized that she had found herself in a world of romance, where the fate of women is always full of troubles and crazy men. And whoever she turns out to be, her story will still be connected with the main character, who will certainly drag her into madness. At this point, they address her as mistress and inform her that she is a servant from the outbuilding. The girl learns that her name is Anne, and she is asked to follow the third master. Approaching the place where the young man lives, she is struck by the surroundings. Everything seems alien and gloomy. The maid explains that the third young master is training here and that the young lady's belongings will soon be moved here. Shayna is confused. Could classes really be taking place in such a cold place? Perhaps this is the protagonist's secret training area. And everything comes back to the beginning, to the moment when the guy said that she was his guide and should become his mentor. The girl remembered how she was struck by his appearance. Black hair like night, and the eyes are bright blue, transparent like an icy abyss. That's why the guy reminds me of the hero Bliss from the story of the Blue and Scarlet Flame, the one who fought with fate. Bliss was born into a family of magicians, and after the failure of his mentor, he fell into a deep sleep, becoming an object of ridicule and pity. However, meeting a new heroine changed everything. She became the one who helped him wake up from the darkness and regain his strength. Now it was Shayna who took the place of that very guide whose incompetence had once destroyed the hero. Gradually, the girl realizes that she herself has become a character doomed to eternal sleep and therefore cannot remember who she was in the beginning. Meanwhile, the young man asks her to start directing, but Shayna does not understand what he means. Bliss reminds her that she's a conduit, and wonders if she doesn't know how to channel. Shayna wonders, because that's one skill she doesn't have. Moreover, in the book, Direction did not mean training at all, but a passionate connection between the characters, which makes her uncomfortable. Shayna decides that, since they are still teenagers, such a thing is out of the question, because she hasn't even learned the basics of the direction and the day has only just begun. She suggests using the time to get to know each other better. After all, if they get to know each other better, their activities together will be much more effective. The guy asks if she wants to get to know him better, and, hearing an affirmative answer, notices her smile, which is difficult to turn away from. But instead of being gentle, he coldly says that it's all a lie. Shayna thinks that if he had smiled even a little, his words would have sounded less bitter. Bliss admits that he knew in advance that their work would not produce results, which causes the girl's confusion. He explains that his father hired a guide of less than perfect caliber for him, and certainly did not expect to see a young student in front of him. The guy adds that she is only 15 and was recently issued a certificate from the Magical Association, while his brothers were given experienced mentors, and he was given a girl who was only 3 years older. Shayna quickly figures that if Bliss is 12 now, then there are 8 years left until she disappears. Bliss says bitterly that his father didn't have any hope for him, and to be honest, he wouldn't have expected miracles from himself either. Shayna realizes that he is the illegitimate son of Duke Huff, whom he chose to ignore. The Duke believed that noble blood flowed in his veins, and, not wanting to admit shame, he still kept the child. But Bliss only showed a gift for magic, and even that was unstable, without noble willpower. From then on, his father treated him as a disgrace to the family. Having cheated on him with a young servant, the Duke hated the child, who was not to blame for his weakness. The young man says that she should leave, because she won't be of any use anyway. He adds that there is no point in even trying to imitate the conductors. It's all useless. Shayna doesn't believe that he's giving up so early, because even in the novel he didn't break down before meeting the heroine, but here he gave up at the age of 12. This thought makes her feel sorry for him as a human being. Without thinking, she takes his hand, trying to support him. But when he touches it, he is surprised. The boy's skin seems too cold, unnatural for a child. She wonders why his body seems to be devoid of warmth. Bliss quietly repeats that her help is useless anyway. But Shayna, having pulled herself together, says that one cannot give up. After all, to create a great vessel requires more effort and time than for a small one. She assures that his awakening will take longer, but the result will surpass all others. Bliss asks in surprise how she knows such things. He doesn't understand why she is so confident in him when everyone else has long since given up. Shayna simply smiles back, looking at him softly. She says that she sees before her not a useless boy, but a person with enormous potential, although deep down she knows that she is simply repeating words from a book. However, she asks him to believe in himself and not to doubt, because he has much more ahead of him than he can imagine. The girl realized that to better support Bliss's education, Shayna had moved into his outbuilding. She also realized that as a guide, she must not simply guide, but nurture and educate the child who had not yet awakened. On a broader level, her job resembled that of a tutor and nanny. After all, the guides were most often mages from ordinary families, without noble origins. The more experience a mage had, the more highly their work was valued, and age usually signified greater power. Some families preferred to take on younger guides to ensure the awakening process proceeded calmly and naturally. But Duke Huff did not choose her for this reason, since he himself was Bliss's first guide. He intended to awaken the boy personally, but when he did not show the slightest success, even at the age of 10, the Duke abandoned this idea. Now the girl realized that the Duke had assigned Bliss a guide more out of fear of being judged, but it was clear to everyone that he had done it to save money. After all, she herself was not yet capable of directing. The young lady then wondered how the hell she was supposed to infuse mana into Bliss when she barely understood how it happened. Shayna found in the book that the first stage of awakening is when the guide transmits his mana through the fingertips, causing the student's mana to respond. The book said that a light touch was required for this. It was inevitable, otherwise nothing would work. After reading this, the girl became thoughtful. She remembered that in the novel, the two had been together for a long time, and she understood that one touch would clearly not be enough to generate mana. The girl felt how the mana inside her body gradually approached her fingertips, as if a force was being called outward. She tried to clearly imagine this flow directed towards bliss, concentrating with all her might. But when I opened my eyes, I saw that nothing had changed. She cried out in despair, realizing that she was failing again, and that today she still had to meditate. After some time, the girl was already sitting opposite the young heir and told him to close his eyes. She told him to feel the mana inside himself, and he was surprised, because no one had ever asked him to do that before during channeling. But the heroine only demanded that he remain silent, and he concentrated because this was a test of his inner strength, his spirit. The young man wanted to clarify whether we were talking about a battle, but then he simply agreed. Shayna knew she was just stalling for time while she searched for the right direction. Bliss, however, meditated tirelessly day after day, and this caused her a heavy feeling of guilt. After all, he could not spend 8 years like this. Of course, the thought of giving up everything and leaving occurred to her, but she screamed, remembering the lifetime contract. The girl knew either Bliss had to awaken successfully, or she would perish, plunging into eternal sleep. Only one of these events would free her from the Huff family. She wondered with horror how she could have ever agreed to such a pact. Although such contracts were considered the norm, after all, unsuccessful awakenings were rare, and guides did not lose their place without reason. For her, this document was a real nightmare. She wondered why she hadn't swapped places with the main character from the start. Then she considered pretending to fall into eternal sleep so the contract would be annulled, or finding the main character herself so she could steal Bliss away. Or maybe she should just stay close, doing nothing, until it was all over. But the girl knew she didn't want to be around Bliss for too long. Although he was handsome and charismatic, he had a painful attachment to the main character. In his dark life, she became his savior, his miracle. To avoid losing her, the guy created a magic seal that would allow him to always know where she was. The heroine, realizing that she would not be able to free herself, resigned herself, and closed her heart forever. The novel ended with Bliss being happy only with the possession of her body, not her soul. The girl felt these thoughts draining her. After all, if he met the heroine, his character would remain the same as in the book. She didn't know if she could avoid his wrath if she stayed close, so she decided to stay as far away from him as possible. And yet, regardless of the course of the original story, she was going to enjoy her life as a sorceress. The girl realized that even if she couldn't inject mana into Bliss, she was still capable of manifesting enough magic. At that moment, a maid knocked on the door. The young lady became wary. Was it really time for class? The maid entered the room with her usual expression of submissiveness. The girl noted that the servants in the outbuilding always had lifeless faces, but today this one looked especially gloomy. The lady with red hair said that the young gentleman did not want to study and therefore ordered to leave him alone and allow him to rest. The protagonist feels a little surprised as she wonders why the child, who is usually so eager to wake up, suddenly decided to cancel the meeting. Her thoughts continue. Has he realized that meditation is useless at the moment, and therefore she wants to know the real reason for his decision? The maid reports that the young master was appointed keeper today, and this has caused certain changes in his condition. The keeper's condition turned out to be unusual, unstable, and difficult for others to understand. Because of this, as the girl thinks, the young gentleman was not just confused, but rather felt upset, which all the young ladies noticed. After these thoughts, she resolutely gets out of bed and asserts that she will go to him despite all the circumstances. The maid asks the reason for her actions, since the young master had previously clearly stated that he did not want to deal with the direction, but the young lady assures that her motives are completely different. The girl understands that there are no real adults in this house who are capable of caring for the child's feelings, and no matter what happens between the head of the family and the workers, the child's sadness requires attention. However, everyone around them pretends that it doesn't concern them, and disregard for the emotions of others is also a kind of sin, especially in relation to children like Bliss. Especially when it comes to children as sensitive as Bliss, dismissing their concerns seems particularly cruel. Now the girl is standing at the door and, knocking lightly, announces that it is Shayna and is waiting for permission to enter. The young lady addresses the young gentleman directly, trying to get his attention and get her thoughts across. The guy responds by reminding him that he has already stated his desires. which again confirms his intention not to engage in the direction today. The girl realizes that at this moment the main character, obsessed with future affairs, risks being left alone with his experiences and tears. Shayna claims that her visit has nothing to do with the direction, and that she came for other reasons that are important to her. The guy shows curiosity and asks what exactly was the reason for her arrival, which was not related to work. The young lady admits that she came because she missed him, and this became her main motive for the visit. She doesn't hear an immediate response, knowing he's probably preoccupied with the keeper, and teasing him would be inappropriate at this point. So the girl explains that she's just joking and suggests discussing the situation with the keeper to shift attention to what's important. In this way, she moves the conversation to a calmer and safer topic that does not evoke unnecessary emotions. The young man opens the door, which symbolizes his readiness to listen to her and accept her presence next to him. He shows slight bewilderment, asking if she is laughing at him, since in her eyes he looks funny, and it seems to him that she treats him like a child. The young lady wonders if he is referring to her seeing him as a child, considering he is only 12 years old, and replies that she was only worried about his condition. She explains that the sudden cancellation of the direction caused her anxiety, although Bliss is not the type of person one usually worries about without reason. The protagonist wonders if he means to damage her self-esteem, but realizes that his actions rather reflect an inability to recognize kindness, which can be explained given his childhood. The girl realizes that she is completely different from him and those around her, so she boldly asserts that her concern is sincere and dictated by concern for him. She asks him to imagine the opposite situation, if she stopped wanting to be his guide and see him, showing the importance of mutual care and responsibility. The guy remarks that she is unlikely to be able to do that because it is her job, and the girl adds that she might if he starts to treat her carelessly and asks if he wouldn't be worried about her in that case. He is only interested in why he should worry, displaying an involuntary emotional detachment and independence. The main character realizes that he really doesn't seem to have much interest in her, although she didn't expect him to treat her any differently, knowing about his obsession and demanding nature. She also realizes that in this story, she's just an unnoticeable secondary character whose actions and emotions have little impact on the overall picture. The situation is already familiar to her from her past life, when she was nothing and no one, and now she wonders whether it will be repeated in the new world. However, the young man only states that he understood everything, and therefore she can stop her attempts, accepting this as a final decision. The girl is a little surprised and wonders what exactly he is talking about, but the guy explains that he understood her intentions and therefore asks her to stop. The young lady wonders if this means he no longer wants to see her, and whether she should return to her previous state of expectation. After these thoughts, he only tells her to come in, and the young lady, without delay, decides to follow his invitation. She enters the room, realizing that her visit is now accepted, and continues to care for him to the best of her ability. Bliss explained that he had abandoned today's goal only because other matters had come up, and he needed to learn about the keeper who had chosen him. The girl watched him with interest, asking if he'd become a guardian, and then offering her congratulations. She also wanted to take a look at him if Bliss didn't mind. The guy just nodded mentally, understanding that there would be no refusal, and this gave the girl permission to come closer. The young lady then realized that a keeper is a living being, born by absorbing mana from plants and animals in order to then serve its mage. The guardian chooses the mage who will become its master for life, but if the latter falls into eternal sleep, the creature breathes its last breath and returns to nature, making the choice of a strong and faithful guardian a great honor for the mage. In the story, Bliss felt a special joy at an early age, because his choice was the first, and he received a guardian before his brothers, which made him happy and proud. Even though the guy had not yet fully awakened, he already had enormous potential, and the girl understood that disappointment could be just as strong as joy. The young lady finally opened the creature's mysterious shell and realized that it was indeed a plain-looking guardian. That's why Duke Huff felt even more irritated with Bliss, believing he'd ruined his reputation, and his brothers only laughed at him. The girl, however, knew history and understood that this little ball of fur was nothing more. Like a snowy white dragon, The guardian attracted attention with his appearance and unusual presence. His body was white, and his eyes resembled black pearls, giving his appearance a mystical appeal. The dragon's scales sparkled like opal, combining beauty with the natural ferocity and ruthlessness of a creature known for its strength and danger. He hadn't shown up as a guardian in a long time, and his existence was practically legendary. Such dragons appeared once every few centuries and chose masters like Bliss. Undoubtedly, the author intended to show Bliss as the strongest, and if the guy knew this in advance, it would be easier for him to endure any difficulties. The girl addressed the young man mentally, noting that his guardian looked both handsome and powerful. The guy was slightly surprised, doubting the girl's words, but she confidently thought that she was telling the truth, because if you look more closely, it really was so. At that moment, the young lady heard someone's unfamiliar voice addressed to the young magician. She looked around, trying to figure out who it was and whether she was imagining it. The voice again asked if the young magician could hear him, causing the girl to become confused and wary. She noticed Bliss's reaction, but the guy was only trying to understand what was going on. Meanwhile, the voice claimed that its owner was unable to hear it, adding to the mystery of what was happening. The guy continued to ask who the girl was talking about, but she only replied that she was not talking about anyone in particular. She looked at the little dragon in surprise and wondered if it was him. The guardian of Bliss confirmed that it was indeed him and hinted at the girl's curiosity, since she was the only one he wanted to talk to. The young lady was slightly surprised, and the fluffy ball said that he wanted to tell her a story that was meant only for her. He asked to be taken to a place where his owner was currently absent, so that he could speak calmly. The girl thought that until the keeper grew up, he would remain silent, and in the novel there were no mentions of personal conversations between the keeper and Bliss's guide. She decided to pretend that nothing had happened, but the dragon immediately turned to the magician, asking if she was pretending not to hear him, and insisted on her attention. He insisted that this matter was extremely important and connected with the life of his master, which added drama to the situation. Bliss wondered why the keeper had suddenly become noisy when he had been calm just a minute ago. The girl explained that he was probably uncomfortable, noting the coldness of his body, and this could be the cause of concern. She suggested immersing the keeper in warm water to make him feel better, and the young man cautiously inquired about what this would mean and what if he drowned. The girl assured him that this would not happen, because she would be watching closely, and Bliss merely noted that the servants should do this, since the guide was not obliged to take on such responsibilities. However, she understood that this was a matter of life and death, and it was better to do it herself. If the young master courted the keeper in the future, they would become friends faster. After some time, the girl was already bathing the furry guardian, who noticed that he did not like water that was too cold or too hot, preferring the comfortable temperature of the human body. She thought to herself how picky and demanding he was, but that only added to his charm. When the fluffy one was in the water, she mentally asked if the temperature was right for him, and the keeper confirmed that it was perfect, showing agreement and trust. The main character suddenly notices that a dark spot is beginning to appear near him, as if the darkness itself is gathering around him. A hunch flashes through her mind that this is an evil aura, and that magic can emanate from him in huge quantities, barely contained by the body. The girl wonders what kind of power and malice this creature holds within itself, since the water around it becomes polluted and loses its transparency so quickly. Fluffy, meanwhile, only confirms that he had been underground for a long time, and that it was there that all the natural traces that have now become visible were absorbed. The girl is surprised to realize that these are exactly those footprints, and she thinks with surprise that perhaps this is all that remains from his stay in the ground. She sees the dirt and doesn't understand how nature's traces could have turned the water into such a muddy mass, and at this time she watches everything that is happening with growing interest. Fluffy insists that now is not the time to be distracted by personal things, and the girl internally thinks that for such a mass of dirt from such a small creature, this is too much, after which the dragon only tells her not to talk and to come closer. The furball adds that his appearance doesn't frighten the girl now, but when he's fully grown, no one will be able to look down on him, and the young lady notes this with understanding. Fluffy then asks if she doesn't believe him, The girl replies that she believes him and adds in her thoughts that the reason for her trust is that she knows his true nature and the powers hidden within. The guardian claims that his original form is that of a snowy white dragon, born to bring peace to the world by fighting evil with the help of dark forces. The main character claps her hands, thinking how amazing this is, and realizes that she already knew part of it without explanation. She calls the guardian of bliss the white dragon, although the other option, white snow, seemed unsuitable to her. But the white dragon turned out to be the perfect name. Fluffy asks the girl if she knows why he chose the third son of the Huff family as his master, and the young lady thinks that perhaps it is because of the enormous potential for magic hidden within the young master. Fluffy confirms that this is true, and adds that if the guide noticed this, he cannot look down on her due to her youth and ability to sense mana. The girl wonders how she could have known about his master's problem, and understands that she cannot answer rudely because it is too delicate a topic. She decides to simply nod, and the fluffy one adds that his master's mana is completely blocked, and that explains a lot. The girl is slightly surprised, realizing that she is hearing about this for the first time, and begins to understand the seriousness of the situation. She wonders if this is because the young man woke up too late due to an unprofessional guide, and the fluffy one explains that because of this, his master cannot hear the dragon's voice. The young lady wonders if the mana will ever be released, realizing that this is the key moment for the young master to awaken. The girl guesses that the young man will awaken only a few years after meeting her, so there is nothing to worry about, and this is confirmed in the novel. The white dragon replies that if everything is left as is, the master may never fully awaken, or only do so in an abnormal manner, entering a state of excess, which is extremely dangerous. The mana accumulated in his body causes harm, and over time, the host will no longer be able to contain it, which creates a threat to life. This can lead to death if nothing is done to change or intervene in the situation. The young lady asks what will happen if the awakening goes well and whether the memory will be preserved, realizing that this is a key moment for the future. The dragon explains that even with a successful awakening, the main problem will remain, and the owner may soon face immersion into eternal sleep. The girl has difficulty accepting this idea, realizing that the young man could end up in eternal sleep in any case, despite all his efforts. She notices that the memories begin to fade a year or two after Bliss awakens, which adds to the anxiety of the situation. This means that, although the novel does not directly mention it, after its conclusion, Bliss may indeed fall into an eternal sleep, and the life of the young master will be extremely miserable. At this time, the fluffy one insists that in order to prevent his owner from falling into eternal sleep, he desperately needs the girl's help as a conductor of magical energy. The young lady is worried and wonders if she has to participate, whether it would be wiser if the Snow White Dragon helped instead of her, but the fluffy one insists that this is impossible. He explains that the young master is not yet fully capable of controlling his mana, and any premature intervention could send them both into eternal slumber. The girl then wishes for him to grow up faster, but the fluffy one says that accelerating natural growth is impossible. When the young mage reaches maturity, it will be a critical moment for him, and the fluffy one asks why the girl is resisting. The lady is about to admit that she doesn't want to interfere, but decides to say that she simply doesn't know what to do. Fluffy argues that if she acts as a guide, then her role is to carry out her duties, even without understanding the entire process. The girl considers whether to continue acting in the usual way, but understands that if she does not change her approach, Bliss risks prematurely plunging into eternal sleep. Fluffy approaches the young mage, asking if she noticed his master's body temperature was below normal. The girl replies that she doesn't know the reason, but she felt the coldness of his hand. The dragon explains that this is impossible, because the boy was born with a huge reserve of mana, but its circulation is disrupted, causing the energy to stagnate, which negatively affects his psychological and physical state. In addition, the owner suppresses his emotions, which has become a habit due to the suppression of mana, and he himself is not aware of this habit. The young lady wonders if it's possible that his character is like this because of his affairs, and realizes that if the flow of mana is restored, Bliss will no longer be so painfully attached. The dragon asks what she finds easier, to release the accumulated mana or to help her master express emotion. The girl decides that expressing emotion is better. The dragon approves of her idea and says that she is smart, since she chose the right path, so the girl will help the owner express his feelings. The young lady is shocked to realize that the dragon means to have a serious influence on its owner if he learns to properly express his emotions. This will help him control mana more easily, and the fluffy one asks her for a small favor. Its task is to raise the host's body temperature using its own heat. His temperature is now below normal, and warming up will help relieve tension and show emotions, but the fluffy one notices surprise on the girl's face. The main character realizes that this is the method she will be able to support bliss. And she warms him up. The fluffy one confirms that now it is possible to start this process. The young lady reminds him that his owner is only 12 years old, to which the furry creature asks if she thinks he doesn't understand. The girl replies that she's 15 herself, so it shouldn't be too difficult. She understands that even in the magical world she cannot violate her moral principles. After which she firmly states that she will definitely not do anything too adult for her age. Fluffy asks her to wait, and notices that her appearance is deceiving. There is a cunning and determined spirit hidden inside. He asks what the girl was thinking about, because he meant to simply hold the owner's hand, directing mana. After all, people too often follow their desires without regard for age or gender. The girl wonders if such a simple contact will have any effect. Fluffy explains that although the method is simple, it will work if repeated regularly. Physical condition and the flow of mana are closely related, so warming the body helps activate the energy, and temperature can be changed both directly and indirectly. He understands that the girl may irritate the owner, but this is not harmful. In order for him to be able to show emotions like a child, she needs to become a support for him. That's why the fluffy one asks the young magician to complete this task, because he has no one he can trust as much as she does. The same applies to the owner himself. The girl realizes that she has no choice but to help. Fluffy confirms that the owner is coming. The young lady looks at him in surprise, wondering if he is pretending to be nice in front of Bliss. The guy notices her delay and thinks that they might have drowned together. The girl wraps up the fluffy one, apologizes, and says that she is already on her way. The dragon turns to the young magician again. He watches them and suggests they try it once. She shares her warmth with her owner. The young lady is wondering if she should do it right here. The guy looks at her in complete bewilderment, not understanding her actions. And the young lady felt that she really didn't know anything about what was going on around her. After this, she cautiously approached the young master, asking if he could help the keeper. The guy stopped for a moment and looked at her with slight surprise. He couldn't understand whether the girl really called this snow-white ball of fur her keeper. Soon he simply nodded and carefully took the furry creature into his arms. The young lady immediately became interested in why his hands felt so icy. The young man quietly explained that yes, his hands were always cold and that was not good at all. Then the girl carefully took his hands in hers, trying to warm them. The guy was a little confused, asking what she was doing, and Shayna just thought that she was transmitting the warmth that she herself possessed. She felt the mana and warmth flowing towards him, closed her eyes and concentrated. The young man watched what was happening with interest, not understanding what exactly he was feeling. Suddenly his hands shook slightly, and he was surprised by his own body. Shayna thought it might just be a reaction, and wasn't sure if she had made any difference. However, the guy calmly turned away, claiming that there was no need for that now. Then the girl asked him to wait, hoping to continue the practice. When the young man ran away, she turned to the keeper, fearing that she had ruined everything, but the fluffy one assured her that she had managed. For 2 weeks, the girl changed her approach, following the advice of the white dragon, and tried to warm Bliss's hands, like a caring grandmother for her grandson. But the result remained the same, so one day she decided to consult with the white dragon, she whispered, asking if continuing to touch would cause harm if the guy didn't like it, and the dragon warned of eternal sleep if she didn't cope. Shayna asked if the boy's life was truly in danger, and the fluffy one explained that help should come from the heart, not from a sense of duty. He added that the girl had already achieved results, and Shayna asked where exactly the effect had manifested itself. The dragon noticed that his master's hands had become warmer, and when Shayna touched them, the back of the young man's head turned red. The white dragon praised her work, suggesting that she continue practicing even if her master was angry, which left Shayna confused. Every day she worried about what was bothering Bliss, but today her thoughts about training were positive. Today the practice was to take place outside, and in the past she had vowed not to practice outside the house. She used to be a real homebody, but now the situation was completely different. In this world she had no telephone, no television, no computer. She quickly became bored with the monotony of indoor life. So the white dragon's offer to train outside seemed especially appealing to her, and she wondered why she hadn't thought of it before. The girl understood that they would not go to the city, but would simply pass near the outbuilding. At this time, the young man was calmly waiting for her. Watching her movements, he noticed the basket and asked about its contents, and the girl explained that it was a snack in case of hunger. The guy only noted that if they were seen, they would think they were having a picnic. He added that no one takes care of the place, so the garden looks neglected. The young lady was surprised, wondering if he was ashamed of the mess he made in the garden. But she decided that it didn't matter, because their goal was training, not entertainment. That is why she did not pay attention to the state of the garden. The young man turned and walked on without dwelling on the details. After some time, they found themselves in the garden. Shayna realized that the mess here was far from small but complete chaos. The girl suggested finding some shade, and they headed there. The young man laid his jacket on the ground, preparing for a short break. He noticed Shayna's gaze and asked what exactly attracted her. The girl was slightly surprised and thought that he took off his jacket so that she could sit down. The guy explained that a gentleman would not allow a lady to sit on the bare ground, but if she refused, it was okay. Shayna immediately agreed to sit and thanked him for his concern. She noted that his attention to detail makes him popular among young ladies in the future. However, the young man asked not to say such strange things, embarrassed by the compliment. The main character was surprised that he could become embarrassed so easily. Meanwhile, the dragon reminded the girl that she needed to continue to shock and embarrass her master. He offered to steal the boy's soul with stories about girls, completely involving him. Shayna was a little confused, realizing that she didn't want to do this, but she had no choice. She decided that the young man would definitely meet a beautiful girl and fall in love with her while becoming a kind and attractive man. The guy asked her to shut up, wondering if he would like it if she talked about such things. Shayna thought that this was true, because when she herself grows up, she will meet a worthy man and fall in love. She assumed that he, having met a good girl, would marry her without looking back at others. The young lady looked at the young man in surprise and wondered about his mood. He looked sad, and that caught her attention. The young man asked the girl if she thought she could leave the outbuilding. He explained that according to the contract, if he didn't wake up, she wouldn't be able to leave either. Perhaps their fate is that they will remain locked in this place forever, and over time everyone will forget about them, as if they never existed. The young man says he's long suspected something like this, so he's not particularly afraid. Listening to him, the girl feels like she doesn't know anything yet, and is trying to figure out what the love and marriage he's talking about are. She's a little surprised. She can't help but wonder why he speaks such dark words that sound almost like a death sentence. She is worried that he is convincing her to prepare for a terrible ending with him, as if he himself believes that he will not be able to wake up, and this makes her sad. His thoughts about the future are too pessimistic. However, the girl realizes that she will not allow herself to fall into despair and firmly states that she is not going to accept their fate as inevitable. She is confident that the young man will definitely wake up no matter what, and she intends to maintain hope in herself, not allowing despondency to take hold of her soul. Therefore, she wants him to focus only on his awakening, and she dreams of meeting a young man, handsome and strong. Her idea of a guy with broad shoulders and a sculpted body is one that he wonders at this point how she can speak so openly about others' appearances, almost with vanity. The main character simply says that it's time to end the conversations and get down to business, without lingering on empty thoughts. She suggests starting classes, ignoring his surprise and inner doubt. The young man looks at her with slight bewilderment, not expecting such decisiveness from the girl. After a while, he is already leaning against a tree, taking a deep breath and allowing himself a little rest after the stress. The main character notes that the young gentleman has shown himself to be very diligent and deserves praise for his efforts. She suggests that he take a little rest and have some cookies to recuperate after classes. She is even ready to help him wipe his face, but the young man assures that he can handle it himself and does not require help. At this point, he starts coughing from the cookie and a slight look of bewilderment crosses his face. He asks why the cookies seem strange to him, and the girl explains that there is nothing strange about them and he can eat as many as he wants. Shayna knows she wanted the cookies to have a special flavor, so she added a touch of magic, reminiscent of the sweets from her past world, where such treats were very popular and loved by many. The young lady admits that, frankly speaking, she specifically created this flavor so that it would be unusual and memorable. However, the young man interrupts and asks why she is doing all this, and whether even his guide is trying to make fun of him. Shayna quickly dismisses it, claiming it's just a light joke and nothing more, and reminds that a similar cookie texture was very popular in her distant country. The young man asks if the cookies really melted in his mouth, and the girl confirms that they were healthy, and everyone liked them without exception. Then she tries the cookies herself and realizes that they are very similar to the ones she remembers from the past. Next time, she decides to make it a little thicker, so that the texture is richer and more interesting. The young man only sighs quietly, watching her actions and internally assessing the result of her efforts. He asks her if she knows she looks a little weird, almost like a mutant, and Shauna wonders if he's trying to insult her. The young man explains that she doesn't quite fit into the atmosphere of this estate, which sounds like a quiet remark about her unusualness. Later, he notices something near her hands and asks what it is, to which the girl replies that it is a wreath that she made herself, and asks if she thinks it is beautiful. The young man refuses, saying that even under the threat of eternal sleep, he will not put it on himself, and she is a little embarrassed by such categoricalness. The main character wonders what he is talking about and whether he thinks the wreath is meant for him, trying to understand his motives. She wonders why he jumps to conclusions and calls her a mutant when she's just trying to be creative. However, the girl understands that she can turn the situation to her advantage if she uses his words for her own purposes. She invites the young man to wear the wreath just once, to which he cautiously replies that she should not come too close, and she insists that the flowers really suit him. The young man exclaims that the wreath will suit the girl, not him, slightly irritated, but without anger. The young lady is slightly surprised by this reaction, not expecting him to be so straightforward. The guy is embarrassed, and the main character tries to understand whether it was a compliment or a hidden mockery. She thanks him and clarifies that she would like to give the wreath to the gentleman and not to herself, so that it remains a symbol of beauty. She explains that his hair color resembles the night sky and his eyes the deep ocean, which, together with the color of the local earth, create a perfect combination. The young lady is about to carefully place the wreath on his head, doing it with tenderness and attention. At this moment, someone comes up and notices that this spectacle looks very unusual and interesting, attracting the attention of an outsider. The young man is slightly frightened and instinctively turns to his father for support, sensing the unexpectedness of the situation. The main character instantly understands who it is and evaluates his appearance as an important event at this moment. The Duke is Jonathan Huff. He claims he came only to observe why the boy left the annex with the guide. It turns out the young man left simply for fun and company. He then bows politely to the Duke and apologizes. The man states that he does not want to be called a father because he does not recognize such a son, after which the young man apologizes again. Shayna notices that Bliss has never objected and is acting overly submissive in front of the Duke. The girl reflects on how stern the Duke is if the guy is only able to say the word sorry without finding other words. The young lady turns to the Duke and tries to explain that he seems to have misunderstood the situation. After all, it was she who suggested the young man conduct his studies outdoors, where nature improves mana circulation and increases his chances of awakening. The young master devoted much effort to perceiving nature's magic. They took a short break to recuperate. The girl insists that a noble mage of such stature should understand that his mother draws her energy from physical strength, and the man asks if this is truly the case. He wonders if the flower crown is part of the practice, and if she seriously believes that wearing woven flowers on her head helps her better experience magic. The young lady explains that her teacher taught her this, trying to clarify the essence, but her words are not yet fully understood. The young man suddenly takes her hand, interrupting her explanations. The main character looks at the young gentleman in surprise, trying to understand his intentions. She wants to understand what is happening and why he is behaving this way. The young man, bowing, admits that he behaved stupidly and promises not to repeat it again. The young lady is a little surprised, and at this time the Duke turns to the guy, demonstrating a stern look. He tells the young man to realize his situation and urges him not to disgrace the Huff family any further. Bliss clenches her fists and promises not to bother the Duke again. After some time, the young man takes the dragon in his arms, and the young lady advises him not to worry too much. He replies that he understands her words and is ready to try. At the same time, the young man notes that his efforts still seem useless. He adds that the girl shouldn't waste her energy on this either, as the matter looks hopeless. The young lady doesn't know what to answer to his words after the Duke forbade her to leave the house. Bliss has a fever, so he can't leave the outbuilding, even his own room. The girl guesses that, since the novel did not mention a serious illness, this condition is not dangerous. She thinks the real problem might be with the workers, as both in the main building and in the outbuilding, they are trying to avoid the Duke. The girl fears that the workers are also avoiding the young man and wonders if they are taking proper care of him. To find out the truth, she asks one of the maids about Bliss's condition in recent days. The maid says his temperature remains high, but he's not feeling any serious ailments. The lady asks if he's eating well, to which the red-haired girl replies she doesn't know. The main character realizes that the workers bring him food, but do not know whether he has eaten or taken his medication, and decides to find out. She asks if Duke Huff called the doctor, but the maid replies that she doesn't know, because she was hired only to work in the outbuilding. The girl reminds that there must be a person who reports to the Duke about the young master's condition. The maid is a little surprised by such assumptions. The young lady realizes that her guess is correct and the situation requires intervention. She remembers the day she left home with Bliss, and the Duke appeared too suddenly to discuss anything. Now the girl insists that she be given a detailed report on the young gentleman's condition. The third son of the Huff family has been ill for a week, but no measures have been taken. The maid thinks that the girl is too persistent and reminds her that she was assigned to the outbuilding against her will, and now someone is trying to act like the mistress. Although the girl's family has fallen apart, she is still the daughter of a baron and does not need to please a commoner, but the maid promises to take her comments into account. She clarifies that the girl is not an employee of the outbuilding, everyone has their own responsibilities, and suggests not to interfere with each other's work. The young lady thinks that the maid is actually demanding that everyone mind their own business. She understands that the maid considers her an arrogant guide with poor skills and also a simple noblewoman, and this greatly upsets her. Even if this is the case, she cannot afford to ignore the young master, and the girl internally doubts whether she thinks that since he is ill, she is not responsible. The woman replies that this is not so. The young lady insists that this is exactly the case, since young Mr. Bliss is the owner of the entire outbuilding, and they were all here precisely to serve him. After this, the girl remarks that it might be time to bring the gentleman dinner. The young lady agrees to do it herself, and the maid is mildly surprised, then insists it's her responsibility. The girl simply thinks that if she doesn't look down on him, then she certainly doesn't know how to care for a sick person. Since she has experience in care herself, she decides to help. The main character thinks that Anne should smile the same way she smiles. After some time, the main character is already knocking on the gentleman's room, declaring that she brought him food. The boy simply asks to leave the food and go away. Intelligent people understand that, although his voice is hoarse, his ability to respond indicates a gradual recovery. The girl reflects that perhaps she was too harsh with Anne. At that moment, the young ladies hear a loud noise and are slightly surprised. They turn to the young gentleman and the girl runs into the room. There, the guy is already lying on the floor, breathing heavily. The main character runs up to him, noticing that he seems to be burning from weakness. The young man asks why Shayna is here. The main character apologizes, realizing that she should have come earlier. The guy takes her hand and asks why she is apologizing. He explains that she did nothing wrong. The main character is surprised for a moment, and then realizes that the young gentleman has fallen asleep. At this time, the dragon turns to her, asking why she came only now. The girl asks if he is a keeper. He confirms and adds that he expected her earlier. The protagonist apologizes and hopes the young gentleman managed to eat and take his medication on time. The dragon replies that he ate almost nothing. The girl thinks to herself that it's good that she came after all. She looks at the boy and notices that his temperature is high due to exhaustion. Fluffy adds that it's more a matter of psychological difficulties because she noticed how the owner was gradually changing thanks to their efforts, and, at least a little, the door to his soul had finally opened. But after a short meeting with his father, the boy closed his eyes again, as if trying to shut out the whole world. And at that moment, any desire to recover completely disappeared from him, as if all his energy had gone along with the warmth of his body. The main character watched him in horror, not understanding how he could be so indifferent to his own condition. After some time, the young man gradually opened his eyes, slowly returning to reality, which seemed strangely light to him. He was surprised by the extraordinary lightness of his body and thought that perhaps the heat had finally subsided and the illness had receded. Then he carefully turned his head to the side to look around, and a slight alarm flashed in his eyes. And then a young lady appeared before him, standing next to him, as if care itself had come to life in her appearance. A thought flashed through his mind. Could this really be Shayna, whom he had tried to remember for so long in his weakness? He tried to understand why she was here, and how it turned out that her presence was not accidental, and the surprise increased when the guy realized that it was this girl who had been taking care of him all this time, without leaving him for a moment. Suddenly, he heard the dragon's voice, saying how happy it was to see that the master's condition had improved significantly. The young man sat up abruptly in bed, trying to figure out who could have made such a voice, trying to remember if he had heard it before. He doubted that he had imagined it, for the situation seemed both strange and surprising. At this time, the fluffy one next to him only became frightened and hid, as if sensing an unusual presence. The boy turned to look at the source of the sound, and his heart sank in surprise. His gaze fell on Shayna, who was standing next to him, quietly watching him, as if waiting for his reaction. And then he remembered how, during a high fever, he claimed that he did not want to go into that house, that he disliked all those people, and was afraid to stay among them. He said that he was ready to obey her instructions, and he didn't need anything, as long as she didn't leave him alone. The main character took his hands in hers, assuring herself and him that she would not go anywhere and would stay close at this difficult moment. She was determined to be by the young master's side and support him in everything, no matter what. The guy just looked at her, took a deep breath, and realized that he felt extremely tired, almost completely exhausted. He knew it was best to just lie down for now, let his body rest, and let time slowly pass. Time passed, days changed, and now Bliss's 13th birthday arrived, a quiet and laconic holiday for himself. Before the evening ball, Shayna sat in her room, thinking about how pointless this whole celebration was, because the outcome of the event was already predetermined. Her thoughts were full of doubts. It seemed that the banquet was just a ritual, where everyone knew in advance how the celebration would go. The candle will simply be placed on the cake, then blown out, and everything will be repeated, as if according to a template, without the slightest innovation. Bliss and Michael were born in February, and due to the small difference in dates, they always celebrated together, as if uniting their destinies. Although the holiday was dedicated to both, the main focus was always on Michael, as the natural leader of the family. When Bliss appeared in the banquet hall, members of the Huff family pretended not to know him, hiding their true feelings and keeping him in the shadows. Guests whispered behind Bliss's back, making his appearance at the party seem like a quiet and unnoticeable escape from the familiar world. After the event, he returned to his outbuilding and spent the rest of the day alone, without congratulations or gifts, deprived of the attention of those around him. The young lady reflected on his plight, wondering why no one appreciated him and why the world remained so indifferent to him. She even thought about organizing a separate celebration for Bliss, but quickly dismissed the idea, realizing that a holiday for two would not bring him joy. Such an approach, on the contrary, could hurt him even more, because loneliness had already become part of his usual life. Looking at the box in her hands, Shayna doubted whether her gift would be of any use or would be in vain. She understood that since she couldn't celebrate his birthday with Bliss, she should at least give him an unusual gift using magic, so that he could leave a piece of herself behind. While creating it, the girl encountered difficulties, so she turned to the White Dragon for help, who supported her in this matter. Now Shayna knew that the main thing was to deliver the gift as quickly as possible and complete her mission without delay. She cautiously entered the young master's room, hoping to find him there and give him what she had prepared. The room turned out to be empty, and the girl wondered where Bliss could be at that moment, and why he was not there. She suggested that he might have gone to the ball, since the book clearly stated that Bliss was not welcome at the banquet, and therefore he should not have been there. But Shayna also thought that perhaps the young master had gained enough courage and decided to go there after all, since she had recently vaguely sensed the presence of his mother. And the White Dragon claimed that the boy heard his voice, so Shayna felt proud of her small achievement. However, she had to remember that in front of her was only a 13-year-old boy, still a teenager, with his own fears and doubts. So the girl headed towards the banquet hall, deciding to look for him among the guests, carefully moving among the people. She knew she didn't want to be seen by the Huff family, but she was also curious to see the two older brothers that people had been talking about. The book said they were beautiful, but not as beautiful as Bliss, and watching them could give an idea of what the young master would become in the future. Shayna also thought that the brothers would most likely not notice her if she watched from a distance, and then no danger or problems would arise. At this time, the girl noticed one of the servants who bowed and, apologizing, asked to state her name if she had been invited, observing all the formalities. Her thoughts continued to vacillate between excitement and determination, but the desire to find Bliss and give him the gift remained stronger than everything else. The young lady at this point realizes that she has no invitation and is momentarily at a loss as to what to do, but then decides to introduce herself as the guide of young Master Bliss, the host of today's banquet, and calls herself Shayna. The purple-haired boy watches her closely, his gaze seeming to penetrate to the very essence. After a pause, he nods, allowing the girl to pass, and Shayna is inwardly happy, considering this a good sign, barely containing her gratitude. The main character slowly crosses the threshold of the large hall, feeling both excitement and anticipation. At this moment, the man at the door announces that the young Master Bliss Huff's guide has arrived, attracting the attention of those present. Shayna notices how all the aristocrats gathered here instantly turn their gazes to her, and a thought flashes through her mind about the strangeness of what is happening. The girl turns to the man and immediately understands that this was done intentionally to put her in an awkward position. The intention is obvious, to present her in a bad light in front of the guests. After a while, Shayna disappears around the corner, feeling relieved to have escaped the prying eyes of the aristocrats. She decides to quickly find Bliss, give him the gift, and quickly leave without attracting unnecessary attention. However, looking into the hall, the girl is at a loss to guess where he could be now. At that moment, someone approaches her, and Shayna feels a sudden sense of unease, not knowing who it is. Her heart stops for a moment from surprise and slight fear. The guy, turning to Shayna, sharply asks what she is doing here, and his tone seems unfriendly. Judging by the sternness of his demeanor, Shayna guesses that he is the youngest of Bliss's older brothers, Michael, and she bows, explaining that she has come to meet young Master Bliss. Michael coldly asks why she is looking for him here, expressing obvious displeasure. He adds that people like her are not welcome here, and only aristocrats are free to attend, so neither she nor Bliss should be in this hall. Shayna humbly apologizes, explaining that she didn't know the rules, and promises to leave, trying not to irritate him. However, Michael abruptly pushes her against the wall and asks how she dares to come to a banquet dedicated to his birthday and then just leave. He emphasizes that one cannot leave the hall without having done something significant for the event. The girl tries to ease the tension by wishing him a happy birthday, showing respect and courtesy. Michael asks incredulously if she is limiting herself to words without intending to show it in action. He points to the box Shayna is holding, demanding that she give the gift to him immediately. But Shayna explains that it is meant for young Master Bliss, and asks if the gift is not meant for him on his birthday. She adds that this day is important for Bliss as well, and apologizes for not having a gift prepared for Michael, offering to correct this later if he allows it. The guy suddenly snatches the box from her hands, declaring that this is enough and no additional gift is needed. He claims that he wants this particular gift and demands that she hand it over immediately. Shayna is shocked by his impudence and thinks that he is only 15 years old, but he is behaving completely inappropriately. She exclaims that he should return the gift, but Michael calmly asks what is so important hidden in the box. He opens it and is surprised to see gloves, but Shayna continues to insist that the gift is intended for Bliss. The brunette mockingly remarks that the gloves seem cheap and easily replaceable, but then adds that they are enchanted, laughing at the same time. He asks what spell is cast and demands that Shayna explain it before he destroys them. The girl feels very irritated and can hardly restrain the desire to hit him at least once. She understands that she needs to remain calm and repeats that the gift is intended for Bliss, and the spell is related to him, not Michael. The brunette notes with irony that Shayna shows more courage than Bliss himself. He asks why she allows herself to behave so freely in his presence. Michael declares that worms stick to worms and wonders why she is acting so brazenly. But Shayna is confident that the aristocrats around her will not allow him to harm her. He also notices that she continues to look at him, holding herself with dignity and holding her head high. Michael doesn't hide his surprise, asking how she dares to behave like that. At that moment, someone calls Michael. It turns out to be his older brother. He asks if it is Henry, approaching his brother. The older brother reminds them that everyone has gathered for Michael's birthday and asks them not to make noise, to which Michael justifies himself by saying that everything happened because of that girl. Henry calls the boy's name again, and he looks slightly embarrassed, replying that he's talking about Bliss's guide, who is quietly mocking him. Then Henry clarifies whether he is talking about Bliss's conductor. He looks closely at the young lady and declares that this is their first meeting. He adds that he is the eldest son of the Huff family, Henry Huff. The main character replies that she is glad to meet you and gives her name Shayna. At this time, the guy turns to the young lady, noting that Michael seems to be causing trouble, after which he asks what exactly happened. The young lady realizes that she should not have caught Henry's eye, as he seems completely indifferent to Bliss, showing no negative emotions. In fact, he deeply despises Michael and ignores him after the young master awakens. Henry suffers from an inferiority complex and can no longer bully his younger brother, which greatly torments him. Together with Prince Fabian, they plot to suppress Bliss. Now the heroine understands that if Michael is a local gangster, then Henry is his enforcer, and Prince Fabian is the head of the entire mafia. She realizes that nothing good can come out of this story. To avoid being caught by a bad guy, the girl needs to protect herself. She claims it was just a misunderstanding between them, and nothing serious happened. Henry asks if this is really a misunderstanding. He asks if it was caused by the gloves, and then turns to Michael to demand that they be returned. The guy throws down his gloves, declaring that she shouldn't think that he wants anything from her. Henry just tells him to go to his father, and the boy agrees. After this, Henry leaves, displaying a serious expression. His brother turns to the young lady. He asks if she came to meet Bliss, and the girl confirms. Henry says he hopes she realized the guy wasn't there, and advises her not to interfere again. The girl agrees and decides to simply not show up. Henry asks the young lady if she has had dinner, and receives a negative answer. He notes that Bliss probably hasn't eaten either, and suggests that the girl take some food from the banquet and share it with him, which causes her slight surprise. She thinks that a person who cares about your nutrition is trustworthy. The young lady begins to perceive him as a good guy, and the man only advises her not to deny herself anything. When she turns around, she notices his strange expression and wonders if he agreed too quickly. She considers whether it was worth refusing at least once, but in any case, she thinks that satisfying her hunger would be wise. At this time, someone laughs quietly. One of the women notes that the girl takes too much food, and you just have to look at her behavior. Another woman advises her friend to speak more quietly, fearing that the young lady might hear them. But the first one assures that even if she hears, it is not a big deal, because the girl does not look like a beggar, even though she takes food secretly. The main character is angry, realizing that this was an unkind gesture, a mockery, designed to portray her as a beggar, which she did not even realize. Now the girl realizes it was all planned and considers the guy a scoundrel. She immediately understood his intentions, and she wonders if he really thought she would consider him a good person. She notices that he is now confused because the mockery failed and decides to carefully watch his face. When Shayna turns to these ladies, they are immediately horrified and taken aback by surprise, not expecting such boldness. At this point, the young lady realizes that simply looking at them confidently, without making any unnecessary movements, is enough to keep the situation under control. The girl then uses magic to carefully lift a glass of wine from one of the ladies, demonstrating her abilities that cause surprise and fear. After this, all the ladies find themselves doused, and they do not understand what happened, stunned by the magical action and unable to explain what is happening. Shayna calmly leaves with the food, realizing that if they decided to mock the magician, they would have to endure the consequences, and she herself needs to hurry to the young master so as not to get into trouble. At this time, the young gentleman sits in the garden under a tree with his faithful guardian, enjoying the fresh air and peace. The main character approaches him, wondering why he was outside, since the cold time of day was not conducive to unnecessary walks. The guardian notices her and asks if Shayna is back, as if checking to see if everything went smoothly after she left the house. The girl thinks to herself that Bliss seems to be lifting her chin slightly towards the guardian, and this seems to please the white dragon, causing a slight smile to appear on her face. Meanwhile, the guy spreads his jacket on the ground, and Shayna insistently asks him to put on a raincoat, explaining that it is cold outside, but he replies that he feels quite comfortable and warm. The protagonist thanks him for his understanding, and notices that he looks calmer than she expected, causing her to feel relieved and happy. She asks if the young gentleman has eaten, and when he replies negatively, she offers to eat together, to which he agrees, pleasantly surprising her. Shayna claims that the food prepared is incredibly tasty and not at all like what is served in the outbuilding, adding confidence in her choice. The girl looks at him and thinks that all this is straight from the banquet hall, and she is pleased that she was able to bring food from there, demonstrating her care. The guy asks who helped her organize this and wonders if she met his brothers, and Shayna wonders to herself how he found out about everything. Shayna explains that this is not the case, and she was completely occupied with eating, not interacting with anyone during this time, trying to avoid unnecessary attention. Judging by the reactions of those around her, collecting food from one room was considered bad form, so the young lady understands that her behavior could seem rude, since she was not aware of such etiquette. Then she wonders what she could do, because she couldn't just leave the food she had already taken without attention and care. In the end, she suggests eating together, adding that she brought forks and thinks that despite the shame, a delicious meal with the young master will leave a pleasant memory. The guy takes a fork, but Shayna asks him to wait, explaining that it's not time to eat yet, which slightly surprises him and causes slight confusion. The young man asks why they can't start eating right away, trying to understand the meaning of her actions, and Shayna smiles and prepares for the next step. The girl lights a stick from a lamp to create an atmosphere, and when he asks what it is, Shayna explains that without candles or light, it is impossible to eat. It is part of the ritual. The fire on the stick grows stronger, which frightens them both a little, adding tension and a sense of magic all around. The young lady shields the flame with her hand to keep it from going out, and asks the young gentleman to make a wish before blowing out the candle, explaining that this is what birthday people do. The guy admits that he is hearing about this for the first time, and the fire flares up even more, and Shayna pushes him to hurry, helping to cope with the strength of the flames. After a few tries, they blow out the candle together, despite the strong flame, and this becomes their small joint achievement, causing smiles. Shayna smiles and asks if he made a wish, filling the moment with a light playfulness and warmth that makes the scene especially sweet. The young gentleman asks if he can now begin eating the cake, and the young lady agrees, paving the way for the long-awaited meal. He begins to eat, while Shayna takes out the gloves she had prepared as a gift, adding a touch of surprise and attention to detail. The girl claims that this is a birthday gift, demonstrating her care and personal involvement in preparing the surprise. The guy asks if she's serious about the gift, and Shayna explains that they're inexpensive gloves because her funds are limited, but they were chosen with love. She realizes that Michael's actions have caused the packaging to be torn and the gift to look worse than planned, making her feel slightly sad for Bliss's reaction. Shayna notices that Bliss probably doesn't look too happy, and she feels a little sad since she tried to do everything perfectly. The girl turns to him and explains that she put a spell on the gloves so that they would fit him specifically, and she is worried whether he will like such a gift. She assures that even if she doesn't like the gift, it's important to just put on the gloves, and the guy asks what spell was cast. Shayna replies that it is a warming spell, since his hands are constantly cold, and the gloves will help him feel comfortable and cozy. The girl apologizes for any shortcomings, thinking that she could have tried better, showing sincere attention to his comfort. Bliss looks at the gloves and says that everything is fine, thanks her, noting that thanks to them they will no longer have to hold hands, creating a pleasant closeness. Shayna would like to clarify her thoughts, but the keeper intervenes, and she explains that everything works a little differently, so as not to break the rules. The dragon praises her for her efforts, and the young lady believes that the gloves will really help Bliss if he can't hold her hands all the time. The boy puts on the gloves and notices that they are indeed warm, thanks Shayna, showing genuine joy and satisfaction from her care. A little while later, the girl is already smearing the guy's cheek with cake cream, and he asks, a little irritated, what she's doing. And the main character replies that she is smearing cake cream on her face, because that's what people always do with friends on birthdays. And if he doesn't want to, then let him throw cream at her. However, the guy then also smears it on her. This makes both the girl and the keeper very surprised. The guy asks if that's not how you treat your enemies. The young lady then takes her fist with the cream and insists that such a small amount of cream is how you treat an enemy, and for friends you need this much. The young man then gets a little angry and tells her to come to him. However, the young lady replies that she does not want to, and asks if he thinks it will be that easy with her. But then the girl suddenly trips on a rock and starts to fall. The guy is a little surprised after this. Well, and then he grabs the young lady, after which she just falls in the other direction, and they fall on him. Bliss then tells the girl to be careful, and he barely caught her. The main character just thinks how shameful this is, and then apologizes, but at that very moment, cream flies into her face. Shayna then asks what the young gentleman is doing, and when she looks at him, she sees that the guy is not laughing, and the girl is a little surprised after that. And the young man, with a smile on his face, claims that she now looks very funny. She tried again not to fall, but got hit in the face with a cake. The guy also laughs and asks how it is possible that his stomach hurts, and the young lady understands that because of the loud laughter, her stomach starts to hurt. However, the guy only just found out about this, and the girl wonders if this is really the first time Bliss has laughed like this since birth, but she thinks that it seems like this, but she is afraid to ask about it. After which she only smiles and claims that this is the first time she has seen him laugh. The young man is a little embarrassed after this, and the main character claims that it would be good to have a mixture of Serbians. He does this so openly many more times because it means that he is happy. The main character also touches the boy's hand and tells him to look, as his laughter has warmed his hand. Meanwhile, the guardian insists that in order to change his master's character, he must personally want it. And the young lady understands that he is right, and no matter how hard she tries to warm the young gentleman's hands, it cannot compare to his independent attempts. Therefore, the girl only takes her hand back and states that she hopes his hands will warm up as easily as he has now become cheerful. The guy then squeezes his hand and says that the young lady really is strange, to which she is a little surprised and asks what he's talking about. The young man insists that she's always smiling, simple-minded, and kind. The girl is then a little surprised and wonders if the guy is really praising her now. And Bliss only claims that this is why this place is not suitable for her and she should be with better and better people. After all, he wants to tell her that she should go to a place where there are people who are like her and she will always be happy because perhaps in a few years she will become like him. Although, to be honest, it's none of his business and he just doesn't want her to become like him. And he also doesn't want her eyes to lose the sparkle they currently have, and he doesn't want her to be trapped there forever and live her life as an outsider. Therefore, the guy tells her to stop being his guide, to which the young lady is only surprised and says that he said this so unexpectedly. But she is bound to this position by a contract and cannot simply leave of her own free will. But the guy claims that this doesn't mean that there is no way, and he can express his opinion about the validity of the contract. The young lady then looks at the keeper and wonders why he doesn't say anything. He just sighs and asks how he can dissuade his master. The young lady then realizes this is the perfect opportunity to resign as Bliss's guide. Well, then she thinks what will happen to this guy if she leaves and whether Dukef will hire a new guide and what if everything goes wrong. The girl understands that a turning point has come and thinks what will happen if she stays. The young lady understands that if the future does not change, the guy will fall into eternal sleep at an early age. But she is not so attached to him that she cannot live without him. But after this, her conscience will torment her, and Bliss knows what will happen if she leaves, and the girl asks how he can so easily ask her for such a thing. After all, he will feel bad if she agrees to his proposal, so the young lady claims that she does not want this. The young man is surprised and asks why, and whether she didn't understand what he said. Shayna replies that she did, but then she asks why the guy is so sure that she will change, and the young man asks how else. The young lady then only claims that he will become like her, and the girl thinks that the guy should do as his sister says, after which she thinks that they should go all the way because she will help him. Shayna thinks he should listen to her, meet the main character, and live a happy life. She also tells him to wait and see. She could handle it after all. After a harsh winter marked by heavy snowfalls, spring had finally arrived. Green shoots began to sprout, and wildflowers, the names of which she didn't know, began to bloom. And the young lady understands that nature with its desire for life is amazing, and the young lady understands what a warm and refreshing spring is. She doesn't like it, and the girl also thinks that winter would come back sooner, because it would be wonderful if she closed her eyes and spring and summer flew by in an instant. Shayna, who adores spring, began to hate it, and this began last year. Last year, Bis turned 16, and at that age, the Huff family began participating in competitive hunting annually. As his guide, Shayna couldn't refuse to participate. And in fact, competitive hunting is an event close to preventative measures. On a warm day, each aristocratic family puts a sufficient number of animals capable of causing harm into eternal sleep on their territory. At first, Shana was eagerly awaiting the competition and wondering what the hunt would be like. She wondered if she'd look like the main character in a big-budget sci-fi film when she encountered the beast. Such were her carefree fantasies. But when Bliss stood in the front row with other members of the Huff clan, and the girl behind him helped the servants gather medicinal herbs, then one of the monsters suddenly attacked her and growled very loudly, after which the young lady lost consciousness. But she didn't even have time to scream, so she was angry at the author of this novel. And he didn't mention that the animals would be so huge. The beast was also confused after that. And the young lady realized that the novel only said that the boy puts the beast, which appeared with a roar, into a crippled sleep. That's why the girl wonders if this is really that same roar. But in the book, Shayna fell into eternal sleep while hunting, and here, at first glance, it's clear why this happened, because if they met again, she would simply fall into eternal sleep. Luckily, the knight chasing the beast quickly decapitates it, so she has to endure ridicule from everyone, including Bliss. Because every time she meets the beast she faints, and this day became traumatic for her. At the same time, it gave her confidence. Well, the young lady now thinks that if things continue like this, she will definitely fall into eternal sleep, as written in the novel, and this will happen when the boy turns 20. The young lady also thinks that this isn't just because of the novel, because she has a strong premonition that this will happen. So the young lady understands that she must enter into eternal sleep before this. But she also understands that she can simply stage it. The girl realizes that the boy turned 17 this year, and she has approximately 3 years left. The young lady also realizes that so much time has passed, and she still hasn't figured out a way to escape her fate. So she urgently needs to find at least a few options. Well, then the young lady also thinks the guy has grown so much, and just look at how he shines. At the age of 13, Bliss looked pale and weak, and his sadness was easily reflected on his face, which made her sad too, and the girl thought that whoever made him cry, she would crush them all into dust. But the young lady thinks that now, after all, the year before last he experienced a sharp growth spurt, and at the same time instantly overtook his older brothers, and moreover, due to the gradual growth of muscles, his body began to look very strong. The girl also wonders if his soul has grown stronger, considering she wounded his heart and left a permanent scar. But the young lady then wonders how he would have changed if she hadn't been there during his adolescence. After all, she could have stopped being his guide when he asked her to. The young lady also thinks whether she should ask about it now, and whether the guy will try to fire her again. Then the main character notices the young man looking at her and thinking he's scared her. She'd already thought he was reading her mind. After that, the young man turned to the young gentleman and asked if he's finished his preparations, to which he replies yes. The young lady understands that because he is very tall, it is difficult for her to look at him. She is interested in whether the guy will continue to grow since he is only 17. But then the young lady suddenly remembers what would happen to a guy on a hunt at 17 years old and understands that this is a serious problem because she completely forgot about it. At the age of 17, Bliss was injured during a competitive hunt. At that time, the young man turned to Shayna and said that she was looking strange again. The girl understands that in the novel, this happened because of his brother's scheme, and the boy received a scar that will remain with him forever. Later, because of this temple located on his right hand, the main character will feel sympathy for him. And the young lady thinks what she should do and maybe she should tell, but she is not a fortune teller. And she thinks whether the guy will believe it, and this is not the kind of trauma because of which he can plunge into eternal sleep, but then she speaks and thinks that, or maybe. After which she turns to the young gentleman, and then he asks, "What is it?" The girl then tells him to be extremely careful and always on guard, and he especially didn't forget to look around. Bliss then says that it is rather she who needs to be more careful because if she faints again, he will leave her, and the young lady asserts that she nevertheless asks him to return safe and sound. To which the young man only smiles and tells her not to worry, and the girl understands that he looks pleased, but still doesn't understand why he suddenly became cheerful. Then the main character's brother approaches them and claims that they really never leave each other, and that he didn't know that they had such a good relationship. Shauna then wonders if it could be Michael. She realizes that this guy constantly makes fun of Bliss and Shayna, and that he considers it normal to vent on the outbuilding workers. Because of this, the workers treated the guy coldly because they thought that this was an attitude towards them and servitude to the young master. But in reality, Michael acted this way because of her, because he was tormenting the people around her because of that incident at the holiday banquet. And every time the young lady observes this, she feels sorry for Bliss, but in fact he does not care at all about Michael's bullying or the alienation of the servants. At this time, Michael turns to his brother and says that he turns 17 this year, after which he asks if this is true, and the guy then answers that it is true. And Michael also turns to the young lady and asks what about her, after which the young lady notes that she is 20. And the guy then asks if she is really that old, and claims that he doesn't see a grown-up girl in front of him. He then repeats the ages of the two, and claims that there are rumors in Swedish circles that they have romantic feelings for each other. The young lady then only thinks that this guy would leave as soon as possible. At this time, the young man calls his falcon, and when it lands on his hand, he asks if they see his guardian and claims that his name is Ruby. But he named him that because of the color of his beak. After which he tells the guardians to greet each other, but the white dragon as well as the young lady are not interested in this. Fluffy then just sits quietly, And after this, Michael's bird screams and flies away, after which the guy asks what's the matter. The white dragon then claims that this young bird, unlike his master, behaves rudely toward his superiors. And the young lady understands that guardians can recognize the strongest among their own, even if strength has nothing to do with appearance. Mikhail then screams for the bird to stop and calm down, but it only hits him in the face. And after this, the main character can't hold back her laughter. But Michael then turns to her and asks if she really just laughed. The guy also turns to the young lady and asks how dare she laugh at him. Well, when the guy is about to approach the young lady, Bliss stands next to her and says that he congratulates his brother on being chosen as a guardian and also wishes him to shine brightly in the future. Michael then claims that he will be unlike the guy because both he and his guardian and the guide are not mature enough, and he does not know whether Bliss will shine as well, but he wants him to become famous. Bliss then turns to her brother and claims that he talks too much, to which he is only surprised. The young man merely claims that this is all simply due to his lack of ability, but that the guardian and guide aren't to blame for his failures. Mikhail then asks if Bliss is crazy enough to speak to him like that. And the main character then thinks why the young gentleman suddenly says such a thing because he can't bring himself and Michael out. Because on today's hunt, there is a man who wounds Bliss. None other than Michael. The young ladies also understand that he must not be angered under any circumstances and that she must apologize to him, after which she tells him to wait a second. However, the white dragon then tells the girl not to interfere because he can handle it himself, after which the young lady wonders what he is talking about. But the white dragon then only orders the young bird to become related, and he also tells the young lady not to worry because no one can hear his voice except this bird. But the main character thinks that this is not the problem. And if I poop on Michael, he will get angry, and this cannot be allowed. The white dragon then turns to the young bird and asks if she heard her answer. If she doesn't defecate on her master right now, then he will. The main character understands that the white dragon has not yet matured, so he does not have much strength, and does this eagle not know about this? But he looks worried. His face seems to reflect the conflict, the disorder of experiences, as well as the difficult problem in their life as a keeper. After which he immediately closes his eyes and pushes, after which the fruit of his activity falls on Michael, causing him to scream. After which he tries to hit the bird and asks if it has gone crazy. The white dragon then says that the young bird is a fine fellow, for her courage saved her master. But the young lady thinks that the keeper really did do it, for which he received only cheap praise. The guy at this time only screams that but when he hears that someone is approaching, he just turns around and tells them to wait, and then they will see everything. The young lady then thinks that it's his guardian who's holding the rules against him, so what does Bliss have to do with it? The girl also realizes that Michael seems angry and wonders if this could have avoided the incident described in the book. Well then, the young lady understands that she is sure that the guy will not fall into eternal sleep before the beginning of the affair. At this time, the young man only turns to Shayna and tells her to be careful, but the girl then thinks about who else needs to worry about, after which she says that the young master should also be careful. A little while later, Michael just furiously knocks on the wall and curses. And his brother claims that he has disgraced himself and asks when the boy will stop arguing with his son and inferior people. However, Michael tells him to wait and see, since he taught that arrogant idiot a lesson on this hunt. His brother then asks what the guy will do, and he replies that he's thinking about shooting Bliss, supposedly mistaking him for an animal. But he won't do this with a simple arrow, but with one on which he will cast a spell, and the guy will not fall into eternal sleep, but will remain with a severe wound in his head. The brunette then asks if Bliss will then be afraid of him, and Michael asks what he is talking about. After which his brother claims that he strongly doubts that the guy will be able to scare him in this way. Michael then asks if the arrow is not enough. His interlocutor replies that it is not at all, and that they should not shoot at him, and the guy then asks at whom. And the man claims that this needs to be done to his conductor, because she recently turned 20 years old, and isn't that a wonderful age? A wound left by a magic arrow will look sadder on a girl than on a guy. Meanwhile, the main character is heading through the forest and realizes that, As always, her destination is Mount Pelud. The mage knights, as well as members of the Huff family, are walking ahead, hunting animals and checking the safety of the area. The servants can search for medicinal herbs in the depths of Mount Pelud, and in the novel, the girl was a mage, so she also had to go to the front line, but the Huff family did not want to use her power. Bliss, though not a mage, still chose to lead the charge. Perhaps this was because he had spent the last few years honing his swordsmanship and attaining a high level of skill. The girl also understands that for this reason, she is the one who must try her best. At this time, the young lady also notices an unfamiliar person and asks who it is, since she sees him for the first time. Another girl replies that it is a pharmacist sent by the Schneier family, and the young lady realizes that she is hearing about this family for the first time, after which she asks if he was sent to help the guy during the hunt. The lady with red hair replies that not only this, but in the following years as well, he will remain there for several more years. The main character understands that usually on a hunt, healers and knights from different families gather and work together, and it is common to meet many strangers there. For example, the Cooper family sent 2 this year. However, the young lady thinks that although she has seen temporary aid sent to each other from allied families, in recent years this practice has not been particularly noticeable. So the girl wonders why this is so. One of the maids then claims that no matter what the relationship between the families is, they would never lend out their people for several years without compensation, and the Schneier family really wants to build a relationship with the Huff family. Marquise Karl Schneier seems very desperate. The main character then still does not understand who it is, and understands that there was no such character in the novel, or she does not remember because his existence was insignificant. The girl thinks that despite his title, judging by the tone of the servants' conversation, for some reason they are belittling him, and the young lady wonders if his family is really crushed. Well, then she tries to distract herself from these thoughts and thinks if she is really worried about a stranger now, but she had to take care of herself so as not to faint. The young lady also realizes that her nose is not long enough to worry about others. Although the young lady thinks that he is still long, after which the visit of the pharmacist who is walking next to her begins to worry about him. The young lady also thinks what is wrong with her, because he looks like a dangerous person. But they go deeper and deeper into the mountains, but why does she constantly move away from the others, and thinks, what if the door catches her and eats her? The young lady then turns to the pharmacist and insists that she must not fall behind the group, so he should walk next to her. The young lady also claims that she completely forgot and did not even introduce herself, after which she claims that she is the guide of the young master Bliss Huff named Shayna. However, after this the guy remains silent, and the young lady turns to the pharmacist asking what it is. The man then removes his hood and asks for forgiveness, after which he claims to be a student of Marquise Karl Schneier. And his name is Noah. The main character then looks at this guy and realizes that he looks like Togo. He is easily deceived, and this guy gives the impression of being a weak-willed person who cannot refuse another's request. The girl then turns to him and asks if this is the first time the guy is taking part in a hunt, and he asks if it is really that noticeable, after which the young lady states that he looks a little tense. But she also says there's no need to doubt the strength of the people on the front lines, so he shouldn't worry. The guy then says that Miss Shayna is very kind, and even cares for people like him. Noah then replies that of course that's true, because they are hunting comrades and therefore they need to help each other. The guy is silent for a bit after this, but claims that this is true. A little while later, everyone is already collecting herbs there. The young lady then turns to Noah and says that she should understand medicinal herbs, but so far she hasn't been very successful. The young man then asserts that of course he will try his best to help the Huff family. And the main character, with a smile on her face, says that since he is a pharmacist she will count on his help. Well, when she sees the expression on the guy's face, she wonders if her words sounded too burdensome and the conversation reached a dead end. The girl also sees a red flower in front of her and thinks that she is seeing one like this for the first time, and wonders if it is medicinal, after which she whispers how beautiful it is. And he reaches out his hand to this flower. However, The guy at the same time tells her not to touch this flower, and the main character of the game, not surprised, asks what the matter is. And the guy claims that this is the flower he thought it was. However, the young man then notices that he suddenly grabbed the young lady by the hand, and when he realizes that it was very rude, he immediately runs to the side and apologizes, and also claims that he is truly sorry. The main character then replies that everything is fine, but asks why he did it. And Noah replies that he stopped her because the flower is poisonous. The young lady is then a little surprised and asks if that's really true. The girl understands that this is the devil's dream, and this flower is a painkiller, a small dose of which causes hallucinations that make one forget about the pain. But if a person uses a whole bud, they will fall into suspended animation. Their breathing will be imperceptible, their pulse will slow significantly, and eventually they will fall into eternal sleep. The green-haired youth claims that the lion's share of people ate the whole bud in the hopes of hallucinating a dead person. But in suspended animation, the hallucinations disappear, and you have to watch as your own body plunges into eternal sleep. And the main character then asks if there is any antidote for this, and the guy claims that if the suspended animation does not last long, the poison can be neutralized. And the young lady understands that now there is a way to escape the eternal sleep in the novel. The young lady understands. Right now, her brain is working at full speed to come up with the perfect escape plan, and she feels she can handle it. First, she should eat a poisonous flower called Devil's Sleep and go into suspended animation. After which the people who find her will think that the girl has fallen into eternal sleep, and after that, she will be released from the contract. Then he drinks the antidote in time and revives, and the girl thinks it's a perfect plan. Well, the girl also wonders how she'll drink the antidote, because if they decide she's been immersed in a crippled elephant, they'll either bury her or cremate her, and in that case, when should she drink the antidote and how can she escape? But the girl also understands that she cannot give up. But for that plan, an assistant will be needed. The young lady understands that if she takes the easy way out, she must take the Duke's family's attending physician as an assistant and leave the estate as soon as the antidote takes effect, because everyone will think that she has fallen into a crippled sleep. And the girl understands that this is the best plan. While she still doubts that the doctor of the Duke's family will become her assistant, and it would be better to bribe someone, but this will not work because she does not have money. The main character also thinks that there really isn't a person who could help her, and of course he won't appear, just like in the movies. At this time, Noah turns to Mrs. Shayna and asks if everything is okay, because she doesn't look very well. The protagonist understands that this isn't the family doctor, but rather the pharmacist and family healer, and the person capable of preparing the antidote. He doesn't avoid her like the other staff, and he's also a timid man, incapable of refusing anyone's request. The young lady understands that if this is a request from a close friend, and not an unknown ritual involving a pseudo-kidnapping for the purpose of extorting money, then the guy will gladly listen to everything, and this is her chance. After which the main character grabs his hands, the pharmacist is surprised. The girl simply says that he is her savior. Their boyfriends claim he's not that kind, and the main character claims she would be very happy if she had a good friend like him, so she asks if he wants to be friends with her. The guy is then a little surprised and asks why so suddenly. Then he claims he wants her to be his friend. Shayna realizes she asked so suddenly that she thought the guy wouldn't handle the pressure and would run away, but she wonders if he's really that lonely. Noah at this time thinks that everything is going smoothly. The guy remembers how the master summoned him, and he claimed that he would carry out any of his orders. The man claims that he asked to be called Carl, or at least teacher, after which he claimed that he wanted to send him for several years as a pharmacist to the Huff family, because he had heard that there was a genius there. Noah then asked if the master was talking about the third son, and the man claimed that he was talking about the one who was chosen as the guardian before awakening. The guy with green hair then asked if this guardian was weak, and the gentleman replied that these creatures only pretend to be cute animals to get closer to the magicians, but they are not simple pets. And the appearance of the guardian does not matter, because what is important is that he chose a boy who has not yet awakened, and as he knows, the Schneier family is now in a hopeless situation. and all the outstanding talents sank into eternal sleep, and only empty ones remained. The man also told Noah not to look at him with that look because he was not thinking of giving up like that. After which he claimed that if the guy goes there, he will be able to meet with the guide Bliss Huff, and the young man with green hair asked what he should do after that. After which his master claimed that everything was simple and the guy just needed to become friends with her. However, the young man then cried out that he had no ability for such a thing, and Carl insisted that the young man should not worry, because perhaps the girl would want to get closer to him. And this is a good opportunity for a loner like him, so let the guy try to become friends with her, and after that he will tell him what to do next. The young man with green hair then agreed and said that he would do as the master wished. The guy now understands that, as Mr. Carl said, this girl was the first to offer friendship with him and he is very smart. The young lady wonders if the guy is really that happy, but then someone screams, turning to Mrs. Shayna, and when the young lady asks what is it, then the girl claims that the young master needs her help. The main character then thinks about what she is talking about, and whether the young master really needs her. Well, the girl then thinks, why? Because Bliss is strong enough, so why does he need her help and maybe something happened? However, the young lady understands that there is no time to think about it, and first she needs to find out what happened, after which she turns to the maid and tells her to take her. A little while later, the girl finds herself in the forest, after which she turns to the young gentleman. Well, he just asks if it's Shayna and what she's doing there, after which he tells the girl to go back right now. The young lady then asked him what he was talking about, and the guy also asked if she even knew how dangerous it was there. The girl replied that of course she knew, but she'd been told he'd invited her. The guy then asks who it was, and the young lady is told that it was the maid who came and said that he was looking for her. The brunette then claims that this is Michael's doing, and the young lady asks what he is talking about. The boy replies that it's his brother Michael's maid. At that moment, the same boy they were talking about runs up to them and says that the boy's guide has finally arrived. The guy then sees that it is Michael, after which he claims that Shayna has never been hunting before, and it is dangerous for her to be there, but Michael then asks if it is not dangerous for him too. After all, he doesn't know how to use magic, so the only reason he was allowed to participate in the hunt was because of his age, and the guy then asks if his guide, who knows magic, wouldn't be more useful than him. And the main character then realizes that this is not true, and she is useless in everything. Michael then asks why the young lady is so afraid, since they will be nearby and will not allow her to fall into eternal sleep, but he also claims that it seems that someone's guide does not like being there. He also turns to his brother and tells him not to look at him like that, but rather that he will simply give her a simple job to do. After that, he asks if the girl knows how to use purification magic. Shayna replies that yes, and she understands that the beast gives people headaches, both in its living and non-living state, and if it is not disposed of properly, then poisonous gas will leak out of the body, which will pollute the entire earth around. And purification is one of the duties of the magician, so Mikhail now claims that when they plunge the beast into eternal sleep, the girl will have to cleanse its body, and since there are a lot of them there will not be enough time to cleanse each one separately. The young lady then understands that if he is only talking about purification, then she can handle it, because this kind of magic does not require much strength, and there is no need to fear a beast that is no longer alive. After which the main character agrees to let Bliss call her. However, the young lady insists that everything is fine and she can handle it. Mikhail then replies that yes, and although there is a species of beast that is capable of being reborn even after death, as far as is known, such have never been seen on Mount Prelude, so the girl need not worry. Although he still says that this year the winter was very harsh, so the mid-level animals could grow into high-level animals. Shayna then wonders if the guy is really trying to scare her to the end, and Bliss then turns to the young lady and tells her to stay close to him. The young lady then replies that of course she will not leave him, after which the guy says that this is good. And he touches her hair, but the main character thinks what he is doing and why he touched her hair. After all, the guy had never done anything like that before. Meanwhile, the young man insists that sloppy people remain sloppy to the end. To which the young lady is a little surprised and understands that he was simply trying to remove the leaf and wanted to help. But she was simply surprised. Well, the young lady thinks it's the same as if she had red pepper stuck in her teeth, so she needs to calm down. A little while later, the magicians are already dealing with the wild animals, and the young lady, watching all this, sees that Henry is acting almost alone. Although magical power is important, if a person also has good physical strength, then he is amazing, and right now Henry shines brighter than anyone else. At this time, Michael approaches the young lady and tells her to cleanse the body of this monster, to which the young lady agrees and understands that the guy boasts much more than Henry, although in comparison with him he has put quite a few animals into eternal sleep. After which she says that if she cleans this beast, its aura will come out. Well, then she sees something shimmering in the young lady and asks what it is. However, Michael at the same time screams for the girl to move away, because this door is still alive. The young lady then thinks that this cannot be because she did not feel the pulse and this beast has definitely fallen into eternal sleep. After which she says that she is absolutely sure of this. However, then, the young lady sees an arrow already aimed at her and understands that this is what it is. After all, the guy had shot her on purpose, and everything had been planned from the very beginning. At that very moment, someone worriedly cried out the girl's name. The young lady is on the ground a moment later and realizes that her whole body is aching. Well, she still doesn't feel the pain from the arrow, so she wonders if the guy really missed. After which the young lady turns to the young gentleman and realizes that he helped her. Then the girl also tells him to wait, but in shock he realizes that the arrow hit the guy. After which he just falls to the ground and the young lady turns to the young gentleman in shock. A little while later the guy opens his eyes and the young lady asks if he is awake. The guy then looks at her. A little while later, the main character gives him water. And when the guy drinks it, he asks how long he slept, after which the young lady replies that it was a week. Bliss then asks if she was looking after him all this time, and the girl replies that yes, and the young man says that it must have been hard for her. The main character then claims that he got wounded because of her, and that is why she had to help. The guy then realizes that Shayna is acting strangely, and the reason is that she is not in the mood at all, because the girl always worried and cared about him and smiled as soon as she heard words of gratitude. Well, now he wonders if the young lady really feels so guilty that she can smile. After which the young man, with a smile on his face, says that there is no need to blame yourself so much. However, the main character then turns to him in shock and asks how she cannot blame you, since because of her he almost fell into eternal sleep. The guy is then a little surprised, but claims that he is still alive and they are both alive now and everything is fine with them. So the main character then, with tears in her eyes, says he slept for a whole week and says that's normal. The girl also asks if he even knows how scared she was when he protected her from the arrow, and no matter how many times she called him, he didn't answer. His body was also very heavy, like that of an undead person. The young man was then a little surprised by the young lady's reaction, and the main character only claims that the wound was so deep that for 3 days he was tormented by a high fever, because of which he might not have woken up. And it was very painful, after which the young lady apologizes for the fact that he had to get injured because of her, and the guy replies that he is fine. However, the lady with pink hair tells him not to talk gay like that. But he should value his body, they treat it carelessly, because of someone like her. The guy got a little angry when he heard the girl call herself that, and the young lady claims that since he woke up, she will call the pharmacist. And the young man then understands that she did not thank him for saving her, but apologized for the injury. At this time, the girl is heading down the corridor and remembers how the guy claimed that he did not fall into eternal sleep and that they were both alive now and that everything was fine with them. That's why she thinks that he says this so easily, because he doesn't know that he was hanging by a thread from a bad end, and if Noah hadn't heard the noise and provided Bliss with first aid urgently, he most likely would no longer be alive. Fortunately, Noah's abilities proved beyond reproach. Michael didn't get punished. He claimed that he thought the animal was still alive and therefore fired, after which he was only warned to be more careful in the future. Since Duke Huff has Noah, he did not ask another healer to help Bliss. Shayna was deeply shocked, and the main reason wasn't the boy's injury, a deviation from canon. The scar Michael received from his arrow was the same as in the novel, but the arrow should have struck my bicep and left a small scar, not such a terrible wound. Therefore, the young lady wonders if it was because of her that the events deviated from the canon, or thinks about how to fix it. The girl realizes that, as she had thought, she must carry out this plan. And all this time, she had been obsessed with preventing injuries and preventing the boy from falling into eternal sleep. But now it seems that for him to be okay, she can't be around, and the young lady thinks this is true because no matter what she thinks, now is the best time for Bliss to leave him quickly, in one day. The girl realizes that to do this, she first needs to find an assistant so she can eat that poisonous flower. After which the young lady knocks on the pharmacist's door and claims that it is she. Noah then gets up from his seat and tells the girl to leave, and the young lady insists that she came to inform him that the young master had woken up. The guy then asked if it was true and said what a joy it was, because then he would go check on his condition, and the main character realizes that Noah can definitely help. Time passed and the end of the year arrived. The girl thinks she's finally made it. After a day of hunting, she put a lot of effort into getting closer to Noah for the sake of her plan, and they have already become very close friends, so the young people understand that now she can tell him everything. A little while later, the guy enters the room, and the young lady realizes that he is there. The girl also claims that it is cool outside, so he should come in quickly, to which the guy agrees but asks why. The main character then asks what's going on, and the guy silently asks why she locked the door, but replies that it was nothing. On screen, she then turns to Noah and says she has one request, after which she asks if he could listen to her. The guy then understands that this is why the young lady called him, after which he asks what this request is. The main character then claims she needs help to escape. The young man is a little surprised and asks what she's talking about, and Shayna claims that she wants to leave this place. The guy then asks if she says she wants to leave young Master Bliss, and when the main character replies that there is, the young man with green hair claims that it seemed to him that they had a very good relationship. Shayna replies that she just wants to take a break and return to her homeland and see her family, but she can't leave because of her contract. The green-haired youth then asks if it's a contract and how he can help her. Shayna claims the contract will expire either when the young master awakens or when she falls into eternal slumber, and the guy could help her stage the scene of falling into a crippling sleep and escape from there. And she's almost completely thought out the plan. The young man then asks if she really wants to stage her own descent into eternal sleep, after which he also claims that if the girl does this, she will have to hide her whole life, and she will not even be able to register with the Association of Magicians under her name because she will be considered undead. The main character replies that she knows, and the guy then claims that she can go to meet her family in secret, and she needs to make such a hasty decision, but the main character claims that she made this decision slowly, thinking about it for the last 5 years. The young man with green hair then asks if she has been thinking about this since she started working as the young master's guide, to which the young lady only nods. And the guy claims that it is very difficult, and the main character replies that she knows that the request is not easy, so she asks for forgiveness for this, and the young man replies that this is not the issue. After which, he also asks for time to think. The main Gine now understands that as soon as the new year arrived, Noah, having decided to delay his answer, took a vacation and went to visit the Schneier family. So after several weeks of his absence, the girl became worried and began to think about another question. A little while later, the young man returned with flowers and claimed that in order for the plan to succeed, she needed so many flowers. And the main character, then a little surprised, turned to Noah. The boy merely claimed he would help her. The young people realized he seemed nervous and didn't like deceiving others, but he affirmatively responded to her request. The main character now thanks the guy and claims that she will never forget his kindness. After which, she understands that now all that remains is to put the plan into action. The girl realizes that today is the opening of the banquet celebrating Bliss's 18th and Michael's 20th birthdays. And today, she will stage her descent into a crippling sleep, thereby escaping the events of the novel. The main character understands that she doesn't really want to do this on Bliss's birthday, but she has no other choice. And because today, there will be a huge number of carriages parked at the estate, which will allow her to hide in one of them when the guests leave. The girl also recalls how Noah claimed that, as he had said, Marquis Schneier would attend this banquet and he would prepare a place for the girl and his team where she could hide. And the main character then asks if the Marquis knows about this. And the young man with green hair replies that he does not know, and the girl must leave before the carriage arrives at the Schneier family estate. After which, he asks if she can do it, and the young lady replies that she can. She also promises to do everything possible and impossible to avoid putting him in harm's way. This was the young lady's plan. After the banquet began, she would eat a poisonous flower, which would then enter a state of suspended animation. Then Noah will tell the maid from the outbuilding about her, after which she will be found unconscious, and then the guy will announce her immersion in eternal sleep. Thus, having excluded the need to choose a family doctor, and if the young man with green hair says that he will take care of the body himself, then the services of the outbuilding will only be happy to get rid of the unnecessary headache. Then the guy will feed her the antidote, after which the girl will quietly disappear into the Marquis's carriage and jump off it long before the final stop, because even if her status is not determined, there are many places where she can go. And since she has magic, she will be able to feed herself wherever she goes, and the main character now thinks that she will cope and everything will be fine. The girl also thinks that the guy will probably be very scared when she falls into eternal sleep, so she thinks that she will go and see him for the last time. When a young lady comes to a guy, he asks why she came. And the young lady understands that the thought that she will no longer see this face makes her somehow both happy and sad. After which she claims that she got bored, so she came to work with him on the direction and asks if the guy is comfortable now. After which, she does not start doing these directions, and she claims that if you think about it, he no longer needs her direction, and the guy asks what she is talking about. The young lady then claims that he will awaken when she learns to sense mana, and since she cannot help him with your mana, he will have to learn on his own, and the guy then asks if she is really saying all this just to hide the fact that she came to study with him out of boredom. However, the young lady insists that she is serious, and the young man asks if she is saying that she will give up her place as his guide to a tree in the garden. Shayna then insists that everything will be fine and that being a conductor is an easily replaceable position. The guy is simply surprised, and the main character states that she will go, after which she says goodbye to the young gentleman and wishes him a good reading. The white dragon then asks if the girl is going through puberty, since she is acting more and more strangely every day, and the brunette, watching the young lady leave, just remains silent. The main character then understands that this is enough, and she did well and is also a good girl. While everyone is having fun at a birthday party, the main character sits with tea made from red petals, after which the girl drinks it and lies down on the bed, understanding that now you need to wait for the effect to occur and then everything will resolve itself. After which, the young lady closes her eyes but suddenly hears someone calling her name. The main character also wonders if it's Bliss. The guy, meanwhile, only claims he's coming in. The young man understands that he came to her because he was worried about what she had said, but he did not think that the girl was sleeping at such an hour, after which he wonders why she was not in bed. Bliss also thinks that Shan's behavior towards him hasn't changed since the day he got shot at during the competitive hunt. And he is sure that this is all because of remorse. But he risked his life, not because of Shayna, but for her protection. And if the arrow had hit her, it could easily have left a scar on her fragile body. The boy also understands that, of course, if that arrow had put him into eternal sleep, everything would have been different, and then Shayna's life would have become very miserable. After all, the girl is such an incompetent guide that she couldn't help awaken the 17-year-old, whom she had also put into a crippling sleep. And the rumor about this would haunt the girl her whole life, and it would start to spread precisely because of him. The young man also understands that the young lady believes that, because of that incident, she should feel regret and carry this burden in her heart, which is why you have been acting so awkwardly towards him lately and have not reproached him for anything. The young man also recalls how she claimed that a guide is one of the most popular professions among magicians. And now he claims it seems she doesn't want to stay there anymore. He also understands that it's wrong to hold on to someone who wants to leave, and he wonders what if she wants to leave him. Then she should have been kinder to him, just like his mother. The boy's mother was a cold and indifferent person until she sent bliss to the Duke's family. She cooked the boy delicious food and bought warm clothes for the winter. No matter what the guy said, she smiled brightly, and for him it was happiness that he had never even dreamed of. The little guy was so enchanted by this happiness that he never doubted it, and it was at that moment, when he was distracted, that his mother left. Before this, he promised that he would never leave his son, and now the guy is wondering if the girl is also thinking about how to escape from him. But he still thinks that he doesn't need any other guide except her, after which he realizes that despite the fact that he has long since given up hope of awakening, he doesn't want her to leave. But then he wonders why it has to be Shayna. However, the guy then notices something strange and turns to Shayna, after which he immediately screams out whether there is someone outside and when the maid enters the room. Then the guy screams for her to call a doctor immediately. The young man realizes that he suddenly stopped hearing her breathing, and even when he puts his hand to his nose, he feels nothing. Then he listens to the young lady's heartbeat and realizes that although it is audible, it is faint. The young man also turns to Shayna and tells her to get up, but when he sees how the young lady's hand doesn't even rise, he thinks in shock that she couldn't have fallen into a crippling sleep because he could clearly hear her weak heartbeat. The young man also thinks how this could have happened, because the girl was healthy and they had only spoken to her a few hours ago, so she could not have fallen into eternal sleep so suddenly. The guy also wonders if she will really leave him alone in this empty outbuilding. At this time, one of the servants runs into the room and asks what happened, and the young man claims that his guide is not breathing and her heartbeat is very weak and slow. The doctor then touches the young lady's hand, after which he only closes his eyes, and he claims that he definitely felt her pulse. At this time, a young man with green hair runs into the room and asks to let him see how the girl is feeling. After which he touches the young lady's hand and apologizes, but claims that he cannot feel her pulse at the moment. And he claims that Mrs. Shana has abandoned them. The brunette just smiles at this whole situation, and then takes the young lady in his arms. The green-haired youth then turns to the young gentleman with a slightly worried expression and asks where he's going. The young man realizes that a doctor from the Harris family can save Shana's life, with whom the Huff family has formed an alliance, and the young man thinks that not all is lost. This is how those events happened with the awakening of the young man. After all, when the Duke refused him, then the guy couldn't bear all this injustice and woke up. After this, a man with red hair approaches the guy and claims that his name is Karl Schneier. He also asks to show him this lady and asks to moderate his coldness. The young man only looks menacingly at the guy, and he claims that the heart of this unfortunate lady could freeze. A little while later, the main character opens her eyes and realizes that everything has gone wrong. Her plan to quietly disappear from this affair with her son has failed miserably, and it seems, on the contrary, events have deviated even further from the original, and now she has no choice but to try to fix everything. After which the young lady gets up and Noah asks if she is awake. The main character then asks Noah if it was her and realizes that she didn't know the guy was there and that her aunt didn't swear in front of him. At this time, the guy worriedly asks how the lady is feeling, and the young lady notes that she is not bad and, taking the water in her hands, thanks him. The young man merely bows and apologizes afterward, saying he wanted to help her but didn't know things would turn out this way. The main character then turns to the boy and insists he doesn't need to apologize, as everything simply didn't go according to plan. The young man then understands that he agrees with this, but this turn of events did not happen due to some kind of accident, because everything from the very beginning did not go according to plan. Or to be precise, from the moment she asked him to help her carry out this plan. When he told his master about this, he only told the guy to help the girl and, more accurately, make her believe that he would help. The red-haired boy also claimed that he would fail to show up at the festive banquet this year, but if there was a chance to save Bliss's conductor and attract his attention, then why not take advantage of it? The young man with green hair then asks if the gentleman is talking about him lying to Shayna, but Carl only asked the guy if he wanted to do that and whether he considered her a true friend. The young man then replied that it wasn't like that, and the man with red hair claimed that he knew that it was not easy for such a weak-willed person like him to do this, but he still turned to Noah. And he told him not to forget about their goal, because in order to achieve it, they must be more decisive than the rest, after which the young man agreed. And now he understands that, as the gentleman said, they must achieve an important goal, so he cannot forget about it. At this time, the main character only turns to the guy and asks what he is thinking about, since he has turned completely pale. The young man then realizes that he hadn't thought about feeling guilty about the plan's failure, and the main character insists that everything is fine and he doesn't need to apologize because she's already grateful to him for trying to help. And on the contrary, she should ask him for forgiveness for asking too much. At that moment, Bliss enters the room and then sees the young lady, after which she says that she woke up. The young man with green hair then gets up from his seat and says that since the guy has come, he will go. Noah also thinks that this guy is so calm. And this is the man who was overflowing with mana after he found out that Shayna had fallen into eternal sleep. And then not only did he fall into a situation of excess, but he also took some action. At this time, the guy just sits down on a chair next to the young lady, and the main character realizes that he looks better than she thought, because she thought that he would be bursting with emotions. Shayna then, with a smile on her face, congratulates him on waking up, after which she asks what he is feeling now and whether it is something special, and the guy replies that he does not know. He then extends his hand and tells the girl to do the same, placing mana in her hand and taking his. The main character then considers whether he's asking for direction, and then extends her hand. And the guy just grabs her, and when the young lady tries to say something, he just tells the girl to do it, after which the young lady does it. Then the young lady is a little surprised and says that just now, and the guy just claims that this is what he feels. And the young lady understands that she has finally succeeded, after which she congratulates the young gentleman with a smile on her face. Well, the guy, without letting her finish her sentence, only pulls the girl closer to him. But then he asks why she did it. Shayna then wonders how he knew about it and whether something happened while she was sleeping. The young lady then asks, puzzled, what he is talking about, but the guy just grabs her face. And he tells Shauna to answer, after which he also asks why the girl is so scared and whether she is afraid that he will do something to her. The main character then only says that she is in pain, after which he also claims that mana continues to flow from his hand and it hurts. The guy immediately moves away from her, and the main character just starts coughing, after which the young man apologizes and claims that he did not know that a mana flow was passing through. The girl then realizes that he is not yet able to fully control mana, and the young man only clenches his fist and claims that he is the man who healed her. He said that it seemed that she had eaten a poisonous flower called the Devil's Dream, and so he searched her room and found dried petals of this flower, the remains of which were in her cup. The main character then understands that he found everything, but then thinks that Bliss still doesn't know the reason why she did this, and thinks whether she should tell her that she doesn't know anything or didn't suspect that she ate it. But if she says so, then someone will be blamed, and the young lady understands that if Michael is accused without reason, he can take revenge on you on a much larger scale. The guy only claims that there is no point in falsely accusing his older brother Michael of secretly giving the young lady tea with a poisonous flower, since he checked all of this. And he asks if there's another person besides Michael who could have done something like that to her, after which he finally asks where the young lady got the poisonous flower and whether her pharmacist friend really helped her. Shayna then understands that since it has already become clear that she ate the Devil's Dream on her own initiative, she needs to save at least Noah, so the young lady replies that no, and she is not close to anyone. The brunette then claims that they often spend time with him, and at the end of last year they both had a separate party, and when he appeared during their conversation, they both immediately stopped talking. And when he came to check on her condition, this pharmacist was always in her bedroom, and he was sitting next to her bed with a depressed expression on his face. The man concerned about her wasn't particularly worried when she was announced to have fallen into a crippling sleep, so he asks if that's strange. Shayna replies that, since he's a pharmacist, it's natural for him to remain calm while examining patients, and the brunette claims that he couldn't have known in advance whether she would eat this poisonous flower or not, and for some reason the two of them made a plan. And the guy then asks if she was planning to eat a flower whose poison can be neutralized in order to escape from there. The young man also apologizes and claims that he did not receive a direct answer to his question, so groundless suspicions do not leave his head. The main character then realizes that Bliss is now convinced Noah is involved, after which she claims she accidentally found a poisonous flower during a competitive hunt while searching for medicinal herbs, and the pharmacist told her to be careful with them. Noah then claims she ate it anyway and asks why. The main character simply claims that she wanted to see hallucinations, after which the young man is surprised and asks what she is talking about. The young lady claims that even though it's a poisonous plant, if you take the right dose, you can hallucinate, and she wanted to try it out of curiosity. So the young man asks if she wants him to believe it. After which the main character asks for what other reason she would eat a poisonous flower. She was just curious, so she tried it a little. After which I experienced a pleasant sensation, because poisonous plants are better. The young man is very surprised after this, and the main character claims that in any case, she miscalculated the dosage, which is why this small incident occurred, after which she also apologizes and promises that she will not make him worry like that anymore, and of course will also stop taking the poison. The guy then asks why she did it and claims that any person can develop curiosity, however, not everyone follows his lead, and did she really put herself in such danger because of simple curiosity? The girl then claims that it is because life in the estate is boring, and she wants to go into town and make friends with someone, and also to fall in love, but the guy claims that she can't do this because she is his guide. After which he rises from his seat and claims that this place is like a prison for her. The girl then replies that this is not true at all, and that, aside from mild boredom, there is nothing else she doesn't like. However, the guy replies that this is a lie, and that it would be better for her to accuse him honestly. It would be better this way than if she lied to him, and the girl replied that it really wasn't true. The young man then asked how often she had been using the poisonous flower, and whether it had been for several months, and the girl replied that it hadn't been that long and it wasn't that serious. The young man then asks if she got these poisonous flowers from the pharmacist, and the girl replies that she did not, after which she says that she collected a lot during a competitive hunt. Bliss then claims that she gets tense every time he mentions that pharmacist, so he asks if she is afraid that he will do something to him, but then tells the girl not to worry, because he does not want her to hate this place even more, so he will not ruin her life even more. After which he says that it doesn't matter what happened. And he claims that he didn't even know that his guide had such a weakness for pleasure. The main character then thinks what he is talking about, and the guy only claims that in the future he will not neglect looking after her. The young lady then asks in shock what he is talking about and claims that she really stopped and it will not happen again, but the young man claims that all drug addicts say that. And the main character then cries out that she really will live a new life and start everything from the beginning from this day. And the guy at this time only asks what happened after taking the poison, because she was free to go wherever she wanted, and asks if she found the love she desired. The young lady then wonders why he is suddenly asking, and the guy then just asks if she is interested in poison. After which he answers with a smile on his face that he will go, and the main character says that he is not interested in such things and asks if it is true. And the young man claims that, seeing how his guide is obsessed with him, he also became curious about how good he is, but the main character screams that he is not good at all. After which the guy claims that since she is so worried, she can also keep an eye on him and let her rest while she can, because she has a lot of things to do later. After this, the main character remains alone in the room and sighs heavily, after which she thinks how she failed so badly. But she was suddenly considered a drug addict, but it was still 100 times better than if he had guessed that she was trying to stage her own death in order to get away from him. But then the young lady also wonders what it means that she has a lot of work ahead of her. Afterwards, the girl wonders whether the guy really fell for her lie or if he's just pretending. But in any case, the result is the same, and from that day on, she ceases to be a conductor. The young lady also understands that it doesn't matter whether her lie was exposed or not, her contract is over after Bliss awakens, and she is finally free. and she no longer needs to be there. But at this time, someone knocks on the door, and the young lady thinks who it is, because there is no one who could be looking for her early in the morning. Then the maid enters the room, and a little while later the young lady finds herself in the bath. After which they also dress her and open the door for her. And then the girl is already sitting in front of a luxurious table and asks in shock what is going on there. One of the maids replies that in the future they will prepare breakfast like this. They also apologize for the inconvenience caused to her earlier, due to their incompetent care. And from this day forward, they will do everything possible and help her with all their hearts. The young lady then, in even greater shock, asks what they are talking about and wonders why they are suddenly serving her so cordially, as if she were their mistress. After which the main character asks why they are behaving this way with her. The maids immediately bow and beg forgiveness, begging their mistress to show them mercy just this once. The main character then cries out that they're not even listening to her, and after they sincerely plead with her again, the girl says she understands and asks them to stop. The young lady realizes that she has somehow calmed down, but then she still thinks about what is happening. At this time, someone turns to Mrs. Shayna and says that if she has finished her meal, then she should definitely drink the antidote, and the young lady asks what she is talking about. The maid claims that the poison might not have been completely neutralized, so the young master told her to take medication constantly, and her daughter understands that this was all on his orders. Shayna understands that after Bliss awakened, people around him began to obey him, fearing his immense power. However, she still thinks Anne changed her attitude too quickly and pretended to be the most devoted servant. The girl also understands that although the guy seemed like a snob to her, she didn't think that after waking up he would be able to raise his status so much, so taking a place in line in advance doesn't seem like such a bad decision for Anne. However, the young lady understands that she does not need to look good in her eyes, but since this is how it turned out, the main character now turns to the maid and states that she wants to set a time for tea in the afternoon, and it should include a cake with seasonal fruit. The girl also understands that it would be nice to savor this warm welcome, at least a little. A little while later, the young lady is already telling the green-haired guy that because of the Duke, everyone started treating her nicely. The young man then claims that it seems that young Master Bliss has decided to take charge of the outbuilding and must have assumed that the girl ate the businesslike flower due to the servants. Poor supervision. The young lady then asks if the young man believes the servants are to blame for what happened. The green-haired youth replies that it seems that such a conclusion was taken because the young master was so shocked that he fell into their situation of excess. But he called all the servants from the outbuilding and said that he no longer accepted their negligence in work and also ordered them to treat the young lady as he did. And the main character then asks why suddenly and thinks, isn't this how people usually behave with their master? But then the guy says that it might be a young lady. He's an important person for the young gentleman, and the main character then thinks about it again. The girl understands that she once tried very hard to become such an important person. She was kind to absolutely everyone and listened to complaints and grievances from other people, even to the detriment of her own feelings and emotions. However, such excessive efforts had no effect, not to mention becoming an important person for someone, and she heard only empty words. But the main character understands that after her plunge into eternal sleep, she still managed to become an important person for Bliss. But then the young lady thinks that all is not well. And he doesn't think anything of it, that she became an important person to the protagonist of a hardcore romance novel. After all, in the original, Bliss had a mad obsession with the main character. For example, he secretly cast a tracking spell on her to prevent her from escaping him, and did all sorts of irrational things. But the young lady doubts that the same thing will be done to her, and the guy is only worried that she will receive good treatment, after which the girl asks if there was anything else special, and the young man with green hair claims that he had a fight with the young Master Michael, and her lady asks him what he is talking about, and the guy replies that the young Master Bliss suspected that it was he who gave the lady the poisonous flower. Therefore, the second one was so offended that he pursued the young gentleman all the way to the outbuilding. But after their conversation in that room, young Master Michael's behavior changed completely, and his face turned white, and he was also scared to death. The main character then wonders if the guy really scared Michael, but the young man with green hair claims that he scared the young gentleman, and although he doesn't know what happened there, he became scared. The main character then claims that this is true and wonders if it would be safe to say that she is leaving her position as a conductor. But she already wanted to submit her resignation today. But the girl also understands that she cannot give up today, so she needs to pull herself together, after which she turns to the young man with green hair and states that she is quitting today, to which the guy is a little surprised. The main character claims that although the plan failed, since the young gentleman woke up, her contract as a conductor is over, after which she also thanks the guy for not telling anything and cooperating with her. The young man then replies that it is nothing, and the young lady claims that, moreover, thanks to the marquis, the young master's excess was settled without any particular problems and she was brought back to life in time, so she would like to thank the guy for saving her. So the guy jumps up and says he's fine and claims Shayna doesn't owe him anything, and Mr. Carl isn't expecting anything in return. The young lady then wonders if he really doesn't expect any reward, even after all the effort he put into getting rid of her problems, and after all he's such a good man. Well, the young lady then says she still wants to thank him. And the guy insists that next time there will be an opportunity to do so, even though Mr. Carl refused payment. Well, young Master Bliss said he would contact him later, and the young lady was a little surprised. However, she claims that next time she will not be there, and that she is stopping her work today. The girl also claims that she has come up with a suitable way to convey her gratitude to the marquis. However, the young man with green hair then turns to Shauna and says that everything is fine, because even if not everything goes as she wants, the girl should not be disappointed. The young lady then thanks him and wonders if it was just a matter of mood, since for some reason she was sure that she would not be able to give up. Well, then the girl thinks, what is going on and where does this indecision come from? A little while later, she comes into the guy's office and he asks what's going on, and the main character claims she needs to tell him something. Then the white dragon approaches her, and he claims that he has known for a long time that the girl is a person weak in her desires, but he did not realize that she was so weak. But young people nowadays primarily strive for pleasure, not for a healthy life. The main character then realizes that even the white dragon knows, and it is dishonest, but she cannot tell the truth because she needs to deceive him too. At this time, the girl turns to the young gentleman and asks if he is very busy, but the guy only asks, what is it? And the young lady claims that if he is very busy now. Well, then she also looks at the papers on the table and thinks what can be written for so long, after which she wonders if she can ask the young gentleman what he is writing, and the guy replies that he writes letters. After all, at the festive banquet he caused inconvenience to the nobles present. The main character then realizes that she is the cause of his excess and apologizes. The guy, meanwhile, merely asks if she took the antidote, and she replies that she did, and that she drank every last drop. Well, then the guy sees something in her hands and asks what it is. The main character hides the paper behind her back, unsure what to say. She realizes that Biss is preoccupied with writing letters, so it would be awkward to give him the application now. But the girl also understands that it would be fair to ask to terminate the contract, and the young man at this time once again asks what it is. After which, the young lady hands over this paper, and she claims that she would like to inform him that her contract as a conductor has ended. The guy then just looks coldly at this contract, after which he asks if the girl is saying that she will leave him. And he asks if this is some kind of joke, but the young lady is interested in what he is talking about. After all, since he has awakened, he no longer needs a guide. However, the guy only smiles after this and claims that she likes to simplify everything. After which, he also turns to Shayna and claims that she can laugh at him and also deceive him like a fool and play with him as much as she wants. But let the girl not joke about leaving him, because he will not be able to ignore it. After all, she knows better than anyone how much he cares for her. The protagonist then realizes that Biss has never been so angry with her, but she knows he's been consumed by anger since yesterday. But the girl realizes that he's much angrier today than yesterday. But even so, the young lady understands that whether he is angry or not has nothing to do with the termination of the contract. After which, the main character asks what happened to Togo, and also why she can't say that she will stop being his guide. After all, when the employer wakes up, and it is natural that the conductor leaves him, the young man then asserts that he still needs a conductor, to which the young lady is surprised and asks why he needs a conductor since he woke up yesterday. The guy claims that he heard it from the keeper, and the white dragon then claims that he has not yet said that it is necessary to avoid a situation of excess. After his master woke up and fell into their situation of excess, his mana began to move within him. The brunette at this time claims that he is grateful to her for the efforts she put into him, but he still needs them. The main character is then a little surprised and thinks that this is not the problem. She then asks if the boy is actually communicating with the guardian. The white dragon then replies that of course he is, his master has already awakened, and the boy claims he had no idea his parent was so talkative. But in any case, he claims that the girl hasn't held his hand for a long time because of this damn mana, so he can't terminate the contract. And now he is tearing up his resignation letter and claims that now he needs a conductor more than ever. The main character is then surprised and looks at the torn paper. She also thinks her dream of quitting her job is ruined. Meanwhile, her boyfriend only insists that there's a competitive hunt next month. He can't participate due to unstable mana, so he needs to calm it down quickly. The protagonist then thinks about this competitive hunt and realizes that the novel says Shayna falls into eternal sleep while hunting in the year Bliss turns 20. And since he is awakened, there is no longer any need for what secondary character like her and she might be able to quit on a competitive hunt. The girl also knows that she will one day stop being a guide and was not worried about this, but then the main character claims that if she stabilizes his mana before the hunt, she will be able to return. After which, the guy replies that yes, and the young lady thinks, what happiness? And then she is a little surprised and claims that he just said it so simply, although a minute ago he claimed that he needed her. He spoke with such confidence that he even tore up the resignation letter. But then the young man asked her why she was upset, after which he claims that he is very angry at the thought that she so enthusiastically wants to stop being his seer, and he is very sad, although she claimed that she was worried about him. The main character then wonders, is he really sad? And he's saying he's sad right now. Therefore, the girl understands that she would never have thought that she would hear such a thing from him, because the young man had never said anything like that, so why did he say it now, and did he really change after waking up? Or the boy has entered late puberty. At this time, the young man asserts that starting from the next day she will continue to carry out the direction, and he is waiting for her tomorrow at this time in his room. Then the girl leaves this room and understands that for the first time she will try to carry out the direction properly, but since the guy has awakened, she will be able to do it much better. And it turns out that she will be able to quit as soon as she stabilizes his mana, although this will come out a little later than originally planned, but she can rewrite the document terminating the contract as much as she wants, after which the girl looks at this broken contract and thinks that she still has a little bit of time left to hold out. At this time, the dragon turns to his master and asks why he said this. After all, he alone can balance his mana. He also claims to be a dragon, and certainly not yet an adult. But let the guy be patient a little longer, because since he has awakened now, even without Shayna, he will be able to control mana. However, the guy then claims that he already said that the problem is that there is little time left before the competitive hunt, and he will say just in case, after which he tells the dragon not to talk to Shayna alone anymore. Fluffy then asks why and asks if he really wants to punish her for what she did by making her life terrible. He also claims that he fully understands that the gentleman is disappointed in her. But despite this, he is quite seriously thinking about why Shayna looks so unhappy, which is not typical for her. After which the dragon asks how about simply breaking the contract and going to their good place for treatment, because if he takes pity on the girl, she will be very happy. But the owner is very generous and can show enough mercy. However, the guy then replies that no, to which the fluffy one is surprised, and Bliss then says that he sees that for the dragon it makes no difference whose side he takes, Shanna's or his. The white dragon then claims that this is not what he meant at all, but it is common for a conductor to resign when the employer awakens. But the young man then claims that he never thought about it and took it for granted that the girl was always by his side. The dragon then asks why he thought so, and the guy just remains silent in response to this, and the fluffy one wonders if that's why he's so stubborn. But his owner has a narrower mindset than he thought. The next day, the main character comes to Bliss's room and says that perhaps they should start the direction. The girl also asks what the state of the young master's mana is, and the dragon replies that the suppressed mana has fully opened up and the master was able to feel it too. The boy replies that it's true, because he can clearly feel the blood moving inside him now. And the furry one claims that he can also feel the mana circulating freely within his master. But just because the owner was awakened by an excess of mana, it became unstable, and controlling such mana is several times more difficult. The main character of the income remembers what happened when she woke up and wonders if it really happened, because the guy has poor control over mana. Fluffy claims that by learning to control mana and then using it, the owner recovers faster. But if he cannot take proper control of it, then rejection will occur. Rejecting excess mana and losing control over it causes a person to lose self-control, which is why the owner must restrain himself at the moment of losing control so as not to waste a large amount of magic. The main character then says that her direction is needed to prevent this situation, and the dragon replies that yes, and mana management will bring peace of mind. A sudden change in emotion or an external stimulus has a great influence on her, and in the end there is only one way left. This is to train yourself so that external stimuli do not have a big impact, hey girl, there, to help achieve this. Shayna then replies that she understands and will try hard to help her. Well, the guy then just says that he sees that the girl is full of enthusiasm and now she is helping with all her heart. And then she'll stop being his guide. Shayna realizes she feels like the boy is teasing her, while the boy asks what she'll do and whether she can help him control his mana. Fluffy claims it will be more effective if she channels it through mana stimulation. The girl then asks if this is really meant to make him lose his composure. And the dragon replies that yes, and asks what could upset the owner now, because it is necessary to create an impetus for this. The guy then asks if they want to make him angry now, and the main character wonders if this could be a betrayal by the conductor he trusted, and her feigned immersion in a crippled sleep, which caused a situation of excess, or the termination of a contract after the difficult fulfillment of her duties and dismissal. The guy simply insists that it's probably a competitive hunt. The young lady is a little surprised, then asks the furry ones what he's talking about and whether he really doesn't want to conduct the course. The girl also addresses the guy, but he only takes the young lady by the hand, and the main character realizes that he is no longer so free in holding hands. At this time, Fluffy turns to his owner and asks what moment made him worry. The brunette claims that he is afraid that he will not be able to learn to control mana before competitive hunting. But he absolutely must take part in it. After which, the young lady only shudders, and the guy, in shock, asks if it really hurts. The main character then tells the young master not to get angry and to feel comfortable, because if he can't take control of the mana before the hunt begins, then he doesn't need to participate in it. The guy replies that no, he'll go there and show off his mana control. The girl then asks who he'll show it to, and the young man with a cold expression on his face claims that he will show it to Duke Huff. The guy also claims the Duke wants him to join the mass immersion of monsters into eternal sleep being carried out in the Empire. The girl then thinks about it and understands that this is the same competitive hunt, only on a much larger scale, and when it begins, the families of magicians, knights, and healers go in the direction of one of the cardinal directions. Now the guy claims that the man apparently wants him to demonstrate his abilities in front of other aristocrats to clear his reputation. The main character then asks how this relates to the fact that he absolutely must attend this particular competitive hunt. The guy then claims that the Duke knows that after waking up in a situation of excess he became unstable, so he said that he would personally guide him. Bliss also says that, frankly, the Duke has already taught him direction and he doesn't want him to teach him anymore. And the main character then understands that the guy is afraid of the Duke's direction and she is interested in what it was. At this time, the young man claims that since he refused to study with him, the man set him one condition and, most importantly, asks me what it is. And the guy replies that on this hunt he must show that he is capable of perfectly keeping mana under control, but if he fails he will take charge of the direction himself. Shayna understands that apparently those words about him needing a guide now more than ever were sincere, and the young man at this time claims that for this reason he will most likely need to throw dust in the eyes, and the young lady asks what he is talking about. The guy claims that if he can't take full control of his mana before the hunt, then she will also have to take part in it, and the young lady, shocked, asks what he's talking about. After which, she says that she definitely won't do it. But at that very moment, the girl feels a sharp pain, after which she tears off her hand. However, the guy asks if she really finds him so disgusting that she is unable to stay with him for even a day. The main character is then a little surprised, after which she cries out that she didn't mean it that way. After all, she is simply very scared of monsters, and he should think about it carefully, because every time she comes to a competitive hunt, she does not get a single good task. That's why she doesn't want to go there at all, and she's not at all disgusted by being around him. So she says it so that the guy doesn't misunderstand her. The young man then remains silent, and the main character realizes that she has relaxed a little. After which he claims that, moreover, if she follows him until the hunt itself, the Duke might become suspicious. And the guy claims that if the girl says that she really likes him, she will be able to get through with him without any problems. After all, she is already a beggar in his soul, so there is no need to worry, and he has no other choice but to allow her to be near him. The main character is then shocked and wonders what is going on, because first he called her a drug addict dependent on her curled herbs, and now he is hinting that she is his stalker. After which she cries out what about the keeper and claims that she will make every effort to help him before the hunt, but if her help is not enough, isn't the guardian capable of helping him alone? And the fluffy one says, of course. But the black-haired boy interrupts him and claims that until his guardian matures, he's useless. The dragon then repeats the word useless again and then says that this is the truth, and also claims that he is so useless and that his master did not even give him a name. The main character then turns to the brunette and tells him not to say such terrible words because he did injure his guardian. The guy only claims that he did not say anything bad about the young lady and asks why he is destroying the morale of the keeper. After which, she claims that they both desperately need his help. After which, the keeper asks if they really need his help, and the young lady answers, of course, because they will need his reasoning and advice in the right situation. Fluffy then asks what she's talking about. The young lady simply asks what he thinks. And will their help with the guardian be enough to stabilize his mana in a month? And the young lady mentally asks Togo to say yes. Fluffy claims that even if you miss some points, your efforts should be enough. And the young lady then says that it is good, and then, based on the words of the keeper, she will definitely stabilize the guy's mother before the competitive hunt, but he will need to try hard with her, because then everything will work out for them. The young lady also understands. It will take a lot of effort to boost the keeper's morale. A little while later, the young man claims that the girl has done an excellent job and that the direction is finished for today. Shayna then looks at her hand, and the young man asks what's wrong and if it hurts. The young lady replies no, and understands that she's already accustomed to Bliss's mana, so it doesn't hurt. At this time, the guy asks her to tell him if it hurts, and the young lady replies that, of course, because she can't stand pain. After this, the young man simply puts on his cloak, and the main character asks where he is going, and the guy replies that he is going to the city. Shayna then, in shock, wonders if he is going to the city, after which she screams, "Is he really leaving the outbuilding? That is, the estate, and can he really leave?" Bliss replies that he received permission from the Duke and is thinking of looking around the shopping street in the city, that the ban on him leaving the house was lifted, and says that he is very lucky, after which they are silent for a while, and the young lady asks if he will go alone, to which the guy replies that yes, after which the girl sarcastically says that he will probably have fun. But now large trading groups have come to the city from all over the country, so there is a lot to see there, and it should be very exciting. The young man then replies that the young lady is right, and he will tell him about everything interesting that he will see in the city. The girl also says that you can probably meet a lot of young, handsome, rich men with good bodies there. After which he turns to the guy and wonders if he'll just go alone. After all, what about her? The young man then feels how the girl burns into him with her gaze, after which he asks if she wants to go with him, to which the young lady agrees with a smile on her face and states that she wants to, and also to get ready right now, so let the guy just not leave. The young man just sighs after this and says that it is so wonderful. A short time later, they're already in a carriage together, and the girl is smiling brightly. Bliss then asks if she really likes it that much, and the young lady replies, "Of course," but he seems completely unimpressed. A white dragon is also traveling with them, who also barely managed to get on the ride, and at this time the young man asks what is so exciting about the city. The main character replies that he doesn't need to be shy and can be happy around her as much as he wants, but the guy is silent for a while, after which he claims that he will be busy in the city and won't be able to have fun, and the young lady asks what he will be doing. And he just replies that he is not going to look for a young, handsome, rich man with a good body, and the main character then thinks that he is good at remembering useless information, so she thinks that she needs to change the subject. After which the girl asks why he went to the city, and the guy replies that she doesn't need to know. And the young lady then only gets angry and understands that of course this is so, but she thinks why he is so cold. A little while later, they find themselves in the city, and the girl realizes that it is much larger than she imagined. There is a wide variety of cafes and stalls there. So the young lady thinks how interesting it all is. After which, the girl also looks at the jewelry and thinks how beautiful it is. At that very moment, the hedgehog turns to her and asks if she wants some. And he doesn't even know if the gems there are real. The girl is silent for a moment after this, but then turns to the young gentleman. And he asks if he had any business on the shopping street, after which the young people offer to arrange a time for their meeting. These words can be interpreted as the girl simply wanting him to leave her alone because he's annoying her. The young lady understands that he's tired of asking her every time if she wants the things she's looking at, and she's just looking at all this out of curiosity. The guy insists he'll worry even more if they get separated, and the young lady sighs and realizes there's nothing she can do about it, and she has to pretend there's no one around. After which the girl looks at another pair of earrings, and the guy immediately asks if she wants them. However, the young lady then brings the earring to the guy and says that, as she thought, they are clean and shimmering. After which the young lady, with a smile on her face, asserts that they suit the young master. The guy then just turns away and claims that he doesn't need them, to which the young lady is a little surprised, but then puts the earrings back and understands that it's as expected. After this, the young man sees beautiful amber-colored earrings, after which he presents them to the young lady's ear and says that they suit her. Well, when the girl looks at the young man, he asks if she doesn't like it, after which Sergei puts it back and says that apparently not. At this time, Fluffy claims that in order to express love for his ward, Poppy usually gives him jewelry, but he then argues that it does not have to be as big as a necklace. The guy then replies that no, and he'll look for some necklace jewelry. The young lady, a little puzzled, says that, frankly, she doesn't wear jewelry often, so she doesn't really want to. The girl realizes that she was stupefied for a second and didn't know what to say, and at that moment the young man asks what she would like then, and the girl thinks that he is suddenly asking about it. After which she thinks for a moment and says that she would at least like a man, to which the young man is a little surprised. The girl continues, insisting that she would definitely prefer a man. The guy at this time claims that she does not want jewelry because she rarely wears it and is now talking about a man. And after all, if a man is her constant interest, then she has dated a lot of people. The young woman is then a little surprised and then claims that this never happened and that it's not true at all. She also realizes that she's only encountered them in adult novels, and the guy asks why that is. After all, she came to the Duke's house at the age of 15, and now says that she had not met many men before. And the young ladies then scream in shock that no. The guy then asks if she could have been doing this, and then asks if she'd been seeing the servants in the outbuilding and he didn't know about it. But the girl simply insists that if anyone heard this when she returned to the outbuilding, everyone would think she was having an affair with the servants. The guy at this time claims that she forced him to talk about the main character in this way, and claims that she had previously found his behavior strange. Well, then the young lady asks why he so often interferes in her love affairs. Because it is her personal life. And the guy understands that he always acts like a strict father. The young man is shocked after this and wonders if the girl really thinks of him as a father. After which he desperately repeats the word father a couple more times. The young lady then says, nevertheless, she can handle it herself, and he also has no taste in the opposite sex, and there is no ideal type. The guy then says she's right, and the young lady insists that it's okay if he doesn't have one now, but he'll definitely have one later. And the young man, when he replies, says that's fine, and at least she definitely won't be his type. After which, the main character only gets angry and asks if there really isn't a single person in his circle that he likes, at least in appearance, to which the young man agrees. After which, the main character asks him what he pays attention to, and the guy replies that it's inner qualities. He's looking for a kind and strong person who smiles sincerely and makes others smile, and also a person who is brave enough to help others with all his heart. The young lady then realizes that this is true, and he does like people like Haley. This girl is the main character of the novel, and her nature perfectly matches the one described by Bliss, and she is also beautiful in appearance. But now the young lady just turns around and says that since he has good taste, he will meet the right girl, and so to speak, she'll find her perfect match. So the young man then asks what she's talking about, and the main character insists that he called her a flirt, but she's not one. They also insist that he called people like her that. However, the young lady cries out that she said that she was not like that and all the men she met were in books. However, at that very moment, the young lady realizes what she just said and becomes very embarrassed. The guy at this time asks if she says that she fell in love with the writers, and the girl screams that no, and she looks at the beautiful main characters in the books and falls in love with them. The girl also understands that if he is going to laugh at her, then let him do so. And after that, the guy just smiles and says, that's what it's all about. After which, he begins to tease the young lady and claims that he is very worried about her because he did not even know that she was so innocent, and the main character thinks that he should stop already because she is ashamed. Shayna also turns to him and asks him to stop because all the men who appear in the books touch her heart, and the guys answer that yes, and that's why he worries about her. The young man also picks up one of the laws and looks at it, after which he says that he thinks it will go well with his magician's clothes. Shayna replies that pink is a beautiful color and she doesn't argue, but blue would suit him better. The boy claims that he will not wear such a brooch, but she does, after which he places it in the hands of the young lady, and the main character tells the young gentleman to listen to her because he is still trying to give her a gift. However, the guy then replies that no, and the young lady realizes that he spoke too quickly. Well, then the girl also thinks whether this is true, and whether he is really ready to try for her. But this is their first time in the city, and he immediately wants to buy her a gift, to which the young man still replies, no, and the main character then only comes closer to him and asks if he really wants to make his guide even happier. After this, the guy only sheepishly asks Shayna to stop talking nonsense, saying he came to town to look for a magical tool for competitive hunting, but the young ladies insist they haven't even visited the right store during their walk. The young man then claims that he will go there now and they will meet there in an hour, after which the young lady thinks that he has finally let her go. And the white dragon at this time turns to Shayna and tells the girl not to get lost during this time. Well, at that very moment, the dragon appears on the young lady's shoulder. The brunette insists he's also untrustworthy, so he'll go with Shayna. Fluffy is then very surprised and tells his master to wait, asking what he means by, quote, untrustworthy, since there's no more reliable guardian in the world than him. But the brunette at this time only turns to Shayna and tells her not to leave his keeper, after which the young lady asks if she is afraid that she will forget the way, but she claims that the keeper is also seeing the city for the first time. Fluffy only claims that he can instinctively return and can find his owner anywhere, but he still thinks about the fact that the guy said that he is not trustworthy. At this time, he asks if the young lady heard, so let them go together, and the main character asks if the guy will be okay if he goes alone. However, the young man asks if she is talking about him, after which he says that they will see later and they say goodbye, and the young lady understands that she is also an adult. After which she moves on, and when she eats something delicious, she thinks that they really do cook delicious food on this street. But when they return to the outbuilding, she'll ask you to prepare such food. Fluffy then replies that yes, and that's a good idea. But then the main character looks at one person and thinks that he is very familiar, and when she looks a little closer, she realizes that it is indeed him. Henry and the young lady are shocked and wonder what he is doing there, and the fluffy one then asks if this is the eldest son of the Huff family. The main character then climbs around the corner and watches the guy, and the fluffy one asks who he is talking to, after which the young lady assumes that it could be a friend. The girl also understands that then he must also be from a noble family, but that man does not look like an aristocrat, so the girl wonders if Henry has become friends with someone of a lower status. The man just smiles at this time, and the young lady understands that he is not as closed a person as she thought. The girl also whispers to the keeper, asking if the young gentleman had ever crossed paths with Master Henry since he awakened. Fluffy replies that his master had visited the estate several times, but he never took him with him, so he can't answer the young lady's question, but asks why she's interested. The girl then replies that it's just like that, but she herself understands that Henry is sitting in a cafe and freely conducting a conversation, and by that moment he should have developed an inferiority complex because of Bliss, since he mastered ice magic as soon as he woke up. The young lady also claims that she has not seen Henry use nature magic during competitive hunting and that he is probably not yet capable of it. The girl understands that later Bliss and Henry will have to participate in a mass monster dive organized throughout the Empire, and then they will encounter each other for real and a conflict will flare up. The young lady hopes that before this event there will be no quarrels between them. The girl also understands that they should not cross paths until that day, after which she continues her walk. One of the villagers then asks if everyone remembers how harsh that winter was. He also hopes that they are well prepared for the monster attack. One of the residents then merely sighs and claims that the land is already under the control of the Huff family. Another resident notes that he agrees and that this method of trade is useless. And the main character realizes she didn't think the people loved Duke Huff. One of the villagers argues that even if they buy such self-defense equipment, they won't be able to repel an attack by high-class monsters. And they'll have no choice but to wait for the Duke's return. And he'll be going to the Southern District this year too, so no matter what happens there or in the surrounding areas, he'll definitely return. The young lady then thinks about the Southern District, and she realizes that the main character, Haley, must be there. She also understands that the novel states that after being plunged into eternal sleep by his incompetent guide, Bliss abandoned other mages and the very idea of awakening, ultimately choosing to follow the path of a knight. But before joining the guild, he took part in the mass destruction of monsters, although he met Haley. He appointed her as his new guide, after which he miraculously managed to awaken. The girl realizes that if he goes to the Southern District to mass sleep the monsters, he can easily meet Haley. But the girl did not fall into eternal sleep on the supposed date, and Bliss woke up the sob-snorting novel which had already deviated from its course. So the young lady wonders what she should do if the guy meets Haley, and he becomes interested in her. The girl also thinks that even if the guide and his charge do not get along, they may develop a romantic attraction. But no matter what happens, she hopes that these two will communicate well. A short time later, the man welcomes the beautiful Revenge and claims that their store contains the most diverse and popular accessories from all over the country, so she should not hesitate to take a look. The main character then thanks him, after which she looks at the jewelry and thinks that this is really so, because ordinary city accessories are different from these. After which the young lady looks at one of them and realizes that she likes them, and he asks what the price is, but when he finds out, he realizes that she is not from Minsk and she cannot afford these earrings. The girl also realizes she's been very busy and hasn't yet decided what to give Bliss. It's his birthday, and of course it would be nice to give him something like earrings. Meanwhile, the man insists that Miss has good taste, This blue gemstone can only be found in the western region, making it quite valuable. He then asks her if she's familiar with the beach in the western region, as the people there believe the spirit of the sea resides in these stones, so they carry them around and keep them as amulets. The young lady then, shocked, asks if this is true and claims she wishes she had a powerful amulet. The man then asks if Miss Nee needs an omelet and if she's in any danger. And the girl replies that no, and she wants to give it to one person, after which the man says that she should definitely buy these earrings because when she wears them, both her heart and the heart of that person will become much stronger. But they're still very expensive. Then the girl asks what will happen if he goes monster hunting, and the man replies that it will be difficult. The young lady then asks if this is really all that is necessary, since it is necessary to save one's own life and protect others. But every time he goes hunting, she is so worried about whether he will return alive that she can hardly close her eyes. The seller is already telling the miss not to cry and asks how much money she has, after which he offers to advise her on something else. But the young lady only claims that other jewelry is unlikely to be useful, since she felt that he needed this particular amulet. The man then asks this and claims that since it is a real gemstone, he cannot sell it at a reduced price so as not to work at a loss. And trade doesn't work like that, because he wants to help Miss, but if he does that, he will return home to his family empty-handed. The girl then realizes she was just trying to haggle, but this man is one step ahead of her. And the furry one says he doesn't have tears in his eyes, so why is he pretending to wipe them away? In the end, the bargaining failed, and the man apologizes. The young lady says that nothing happened and thanks him for his concern. Well, one day, someone approaches the miss and claims that he sees how the beautiful and kind lady is sad, and this torments his heart so much. And he hopes that the girl will give him the honor of saving her from tears. The main character is then shocked, wondering what he's talking about, and the dragon doesn't understand who this guy is. The girl also realizes she hasn't shed a tear, so why is he trying to save her? After which she claims everything is fine and she doesn't need help. The young lady also realizes that the guy's appearance is completely hidden behind the hood, but he still seems familiar to her. After which the girl finally realizes that this is the man who was with Henry. The guy just smiles and then asks her to forgive him for his rudeness. He takes off his hood and claims that he is not some kind of strange person, so he asks not to worry, and the main character is shocked and wonders if this is really Prince Fabian. The girl then wonders what the prince is doing there, and the guy asks if everything is okay with her and how she's feeling, since she's turned pale, and the young lady realizes it's all because of him. She realizes that this man, like Fabian from the novel, has expressive red eyes, because in the entire empire only 2 people have red eyes, the prince and his mother. The young lady now says that she is fine, so there is no need, but at this time someone comes up to the young lady from behind and asks what she is doing there. The main character then asks in shock if this is really Mr. Henry. The prince then asks if they know each other. The brunette claims that the girl is his younger brother's guide. His Highness then looks at the girl, and the young lady understands that she really wants to go there, but does not know how to escape. The prince then says that this is unexpected and asks to introduce them, but Henry tells him not to do anything funny. So the guy asks if he thinks he'll do anything. Shayna realizes that these two have been best friends since childhood, and she's now realized this from their informal interactions. The young people are also wondering what kind of curse this is. After all, if Fabian hadn't been wearing such an outfit, she would have recognized him and immediately tried to run away. Henry then asks to be introduced and claims that he is his friend, to which His Majesty smiles. Henry then points to the young lady and claims it's Bliss's guide, Shayna. The young lady then realizes the prince is standing in front of her, and if she looks bad, she's dead, so she just needs to smile. And His Majesty turns to Henry at this point and asks why he did it so indifferently, since he didn't even mention his name. The young lady then also realizes that she doesn't want him to fully introduce His Majesty. The guy at this time turns to the young lady and asks if he can call her Miss Shayna, and the girl replies that yes. And the blonde claims that Mr. Henry also has great generosity like him, and Henry communicates with him so freely because they are close friends, so he asks the girl not to be nervous. After which, He also hands the young lady a box, and when he opens it, he also asks her to take it. Then the young lady sees there the very earring that she wanted, and wonders when he managed to buy it. Henry then asks what it is, and the prince claims that Miss Shauna wants to give a gift to someone dear to her who is going on a competitive hunt. The brunette then asks why she is doing this and whether she is really going to give it to Bliss. After which, he also asks whether the girl went into town alone or with him. The young lady replies that they arrived there together. Henry then says that's good, and he too was thinking of returning to the estate soon, so they could go together. The main character is then shocked and wonders why he is doing this and whether it is on purpose, while the man claims that before that he will leave for a short time and the prince tells him to be careful. Afterwards, he tells Miss Shaina that he very much hopes she won't forget their meeting today and asks her not to refuse the gift. The young lady then thinks she doesn't need him or the jewelry, so they should all just leave. However, she says that he opened his heart to her and this is not forgotten, and even more so if she accepts this gift, she will be left with a not-so-bright memory of heaviness in her heart. Therefore, she will only accept his kindness. Afterwards, she leaves with Henry, and he asks where Bliss is now. The young lady replies that he is currently in the shop selling magical tools. His Majesty at this time only smirks and throws that box. A man selling jewelry approaches a customer and claims that he dropped the gift, but His Majesty claims that he deliberately threw it away. He also says that the guy is a very good merchant, after which he tramples the box with the decoration and says that he was cheating, selling cheap ore as amulets. Bliss stands there with her purchases ready. Then the young lady addresses him, and the boy sees that she is with Henry. He then claims he didn't know the boy was with his guide. Henry replies that they bumped into each other by chance, and the young lady just smiles and nods. Henry claims that since they have already met, they will all go home together in his carriage, but Bliss thanks him and claims that they already have a carriage, so they will go in their own. However, Henry says that they have nothing to fear because he needs to talk to Bliss, so they should go together. The main character then says that since the two of them need to discuss something, it would be better if she goes, believing that she will only get in their way. However, Bliss puts a hand on her shoulder and asks if she'll interfere, and if so, then she shouldn't talk nonsense. The guy also wonders if she's decided to leave him to survive on her own. The young lady understands that at least one person must survive. The boy then turns to Henry and asks if they can talk if Shaina comes with them. The girl then begs him to say no. However, Henry then insists he doesn't care, after which Bliss says the young lady shouldn't say anything else that might interfere, as he doesn't like that. The young lady then agrees and thanks him, and then the guy hands her a bag, and the young woman then asks what's in it. The young man replies that this is her favorite cookie, and the main character wonders why he is giving it to her, after which she looks at Bliss. He just smiles, after which the young lady thanks him for the treat. Then they get into the carriage and head back to the outbuilding. However, the main character feels very uncomfortable sitting there. Bliss then turns to her brother and asks what he wanted to say. But he only wonders why Bliss still keeps the conductor close to her, and the main character then wonders why she suddenly became a topic of conversation. And Henry then claims that the guy has already awakened and no longer needs a guide. The young lady is then a little surprised and wonders if Henry doesn't know about the unstable situation with Bliss's mana, but if Duke Huff knows about it, then the other children should have been aware of it too. The girl also doesn't know why this is so, but it's still for the best, because if Henry knew the truth, he would most likely have had a hand in ensuring that Bliss couldn't stabilize his mother. The guy is about to say something. However, the young lady suddenly interrupts him and insists that she said she would stay with him. The girl also claims that it will be very difficult for her to leave her beloved young master, so she will not stay with him for long, and she begged him about it. After which the young lady looks at the young gentleman and asks if this is so. Then she looks at him and thinks he should quickly answer yes. The guy then says that's true, but he couldn't pretend he didn't know anything. However, Henry then argues that if the girl is so attached to him, it seems Bliss treated her very well. The young lady replies that, of course, the young gentleman even took her into town today. Henry, however, insists that he simply took her along, since he decided to go into town for magical tools. The young lady then thinks that the guy is absolutely sure that he and Bliss are hiding something, but then she says that this is true, but honestly, he took her with him to buy her a gift because her birthday is coming up soon. Henry then asks if this is really her gift, and the young lady opens the cookies and says that yes, even though they look simple, they are her favorite sweet. The girl says that they are really tasty, but then almost spits out the cookies. After which, he looks at Bliss in shock, and the young man then claims that he heard she likes this cake. The main character thinks yes, and she did say that, but she wonders why now, and Henry then claims that these cakes are enchanted. The young lady then only smiles and says that since her favorite cake isn't easy to find, the young gentleman himself conjured them. But Henry then asks what's the matter, and that it's her favorite candy, so let her have it until the end. Shayna replies that she'll save them to enjoy later. The man then thinks that his brother is playing the fool and conjuring up his cakes. But if he's so broken with her, will he ever be able to let her go? The guy then asks if this is what his brother wanted to talk about. And Henry replies that no, and he wants to train with him before the competitive hunt starts. After all, he considers it necessary to unite before the start of this event, and Michael went to train with him as a child, so there is no great need for this. However, this will be the first hunt in which Bliss will consciously use magic. The protagonist understands that Henry is talking about teaming up to prevent an accident during a competitive hunt, and this is necessary for everyone's safety. But the girl also thinks that if Bliss trains with Henry, he might notice the instability of the guy's mana, and also if Bliss exceeds the amount of mana she can control during training, he will have an attack and he can injure Henry. Bliss then wonders what his brother means now, because when he wanted such training from him, Henry always refused him. His brother insists it's because he first needs to reach a minimum level. The young man then asks how, and then thanks her for the offer, but she declines. But he claims that this is because he has not yet reached the required level. Henry then just gets angry and asks what he said and who didn't reach the proper level. After which he turns to Bliss and asks why he is suddenly acting so arrogant, because all his life he was only concerned with his own interests, and now he has even more ceased to distinguish heaven from earth, and, as his brother, he will offer him training and will also be able to understand when the guy reaches the required level. After which Bliss says that if his brother wants it so much, then good, and let him find him and also let him know when he wants to start. When they get out of the carriage, the main character, in shock, asks why the guy agreed to train with young Master Henry. The brunette claims he couldn't refuse the fight, no matter what reason he gave. Henry would have rejected it and scheduled a training day. Bliss also claims training isn't important, and that his brother's fate is far more important to him. But the main character then asks why he decided to warm it up. 5. He knew that under no circumstances could he refuse. The young man then only looks away and claims that it is in order to enjoy his facial expression, and the main character is a little surprised. The guy claims that he used to listen to his brother's every word, and when he was a child he was always looking forward to magical training with him, but then he realized they weren't meant to be, and he feared that even if he asked for help, he'd simply be ignored. But then his brother himself began to show interest when he woke up. And the main character then asks if this is really why the guy made him angry, and the young man just smiles and notes that yes, he made him angry because he was selfish. However, the young lady then grabs the guy by the hands and asks why he is so selfish, after which he claims that now the young gentleman has the opportunity to behave like this, and the guy asks how. The girl replies that it's easy, and let him show himself during training with young Master Henry, because a truly strong person will find out who he is and will issue a warning not to behave arrogantly towards him anymore. And the guy then says that it turns out that when they got into the carriage, she was worried about training, and the young lady says that this is how it was, but she thinks that she was really worried about training with Henry, because until Bliss woke up, he had to read Henry's emotions. And it would be better if the guy took care of himself to stabilize his mana than act so self-confidently, so the young lady wants to tell Bliss to be more patient, and the girl says that everything is fine because their young master is, in any case, stronger than young Master Henry. The little dragon also claims that this is true, and in what way is this Henry better than his master? Because his master will undoubtedly win. The brunette then asks if they both forgot that his mother is unstable, and the young lady then tells the guy not to worry because he has her. After which the girl takes his hands from hers and claims that it is so that he does not give in to young Master Henry. She will help him. The young man then claims that sometimes her words make him doubt her, and these are doubts that she will not always be by his side, but he asks if the girl thinks so. The young woman then looks at her hands, which had just been holding the boy's, and wonders why she feels strange. The boy, meanwhile, claims that she's helping him during practice, but its meaning lies not only in the use of simple magic, and the young lady then asks what it is. The brunette replies that this is also martial arts training, and magic is not a panacea, so it is necessary to train combat skills as well, and since he has no experience in battles, he can learn a lot during this training. But the main character claims that young Master Henry, on the contrary, has enough experience, and if he admits that the guy's mana is unstable, he can use anything to prevent it from stabilizing. Therefore, in order to prevent this, it would be better to show young Master Henry that his mana is completely stable, and if the guy demonstrates mastery of high-level ice magic, then young Master Henry will not doubt anything. The young man then asks if the girl is talking about high-level ice magic, and the dragon claims that he understands what Shayna wants to say, but at the moment it is dangerous for his master to use high-level magic. The guy claims that 1 or 2 times shouldn't do much harm to him, and if he trains magic and direction at the same time, he thinks he can slightly expand the boundaries of magic that can be used. The little dragon then says that the gentleman is probably right, and then looks at the young lady and she asks, "What is it?" The brunette then turns to Shayna with a smile on his face and asks her to be his opponent for training, to which the young lady is very surprised and asks why her. And the guy claims that she herself said that she would help him so that he could stand up to his brother, but the girl then screams that she did not say that she would become his rival in training, and that she would provide moral support or help in directions, and that she definitely will not become his rival. The little dragon then says that modesty is also a virtue, and that the girl, who is not a magician registered with the Association of Magicians, should be much more confident. The main character then wonders if he is talking about confidence, and whether she will be able to gain confidence, or whether she will be able to stand up to perhaps the strongest boss in this world. At this time, the guy insists that everything is fine and she doesn't need to worry, because she just needs to improve her physical abilities. But the main thing is not to play. Then, in shock, he asks if he is really offering to train with him, because now her physical abilities are quite sufficient. Well, the young man then asks if she has forgotten about the day when Michael almost shot her, or if, since she has such good reflexes, she could have dodged. But he can't save her every time. The main character then realizes that she seems to have misunderstood something and wonders why the guy wants her to be his opponent at training. And perhaps from the very beginning he accepted Henry's offer to train her. Meanwhile, the young man asks her to take care of him. 2 days later, the girl, now with a gloomy expression on her face, wishes the young gentleman good morning and realizes that somehow it happened that she is now training martial arts. Well, ideally, she would like to train only magic. The guy then also wishes her good morning and says that it is warm today, so he asks if she doesn't mind working out outside. The young lady replies that she's completely prepared, so it can happen anytime. However, the company insists that she should first release the tension and relax, as that kind of attitude isn't needed during combat training. He also claims to have been trained by one of the servants who had experience in combat. The guy then claims that he will teach her self-defense, and when she masters it perfectly, she will no longer have to practice, and the girl understands that it is simple, and she will finish with this today. The young lady then asks what he will teach her, and at that moment the guy takes off, after which he grabs the young lady by the hand. And he claims that he will teach her how to leave when she is threatened, after which he tells her to try to leave. Shayna then asks if this is really a workout, and the guy with a smile on his face tells her to try it, and the girl understands that there is nothing special about it. After which, she tries to break free, but realizes that his grip is almost iron. That's why the girl is shocked, and thinks he can be so strong. At this time, the young man only pulls her towards himself. after which the girl screams a little and asks who is threatening in this way. Bliss claims that this is a more humiliating way of immobilizing her body, but the main character screams, "Who would do that?" The young man then replies that it was not him, but one should not trust others so easily, and it would be unpleasant if she were immobilized like that. So let her remember this feeling well. But when the young lady tries to do something with her hands, the guy just grabs them, and Shayna thinks how he noticed it so quickly and made it so that she could not use magic. And now she must free herself without the use of magic. So the young lady turns to the young master and asks how she can escape this hold, after which the main character pulls the young man towards her, which surprises him, and asks what she is doing now. However, at that very moment, the main character hits his nose with her forehead, causing the guy to fall. The girl then cries out, wondering if she did it. She knocked him to the ground, just like he said. Bliss replies that she's done well, and if she can't win with strength, she needs to aim for his weak spots, something she's learned well. And she also has a head like a stone. After which the young man rises from the ground and says that even if her head is so strong, she still shouldn't love so thoughtlessly and should look for other sore spots. Shayna. Then she looks at the place between his legs. The young man sees where her gaze falls. After which, in shock, he says that it's not there, and the main character asks if this isn't a weak spot for all men, so you need to kick there and that will be most effective, after which she asks if he agrees. And then she also says she thinks it would be better to hit him with her knee, but the young lady also tells him not to worry, because if she hits him in a weak spot or makes a mistake, she could be responsible for his life.